All right. Well, welcome everybody to the June 15th, 2026 P&Z meeting. The meeting is being held via Teams. The meeting is being recorded and the video archive will be available on the Reston Planning and Zoning website. As we begin, please be reminded that all participants are expected to engage with civility and respect, both in the online chat and during public comments, so that we can foster a constructive and inclusive discussion. If citizens attending the meeting wish to make a comment or ask a question following the presentation by the applicant and the discussion by the committee, they may raise their hand in the Teams app, and the moderator will notify me and will unmute the citizen. Please identify yourself by name and address before making any comments, and then you can ask a question. And please, for all attendees, both P&Z members and citizens, please keep your comments concise. If someone's already said something, there's no need to repeat it. You can just agree. Because we do have a full agenda this evening, 3 cases, which is more than normal, and we want to make sure we have time to hear everyone. So without further ado, land use application 1, Lofts 2.
And we do have a quorum, John.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Lynn. Sorry, I almost forgot. Lofts 2, the applicant is Pulte. The applicant's representative is Brian Winterhalter from DLA Piper. Brian, are you or another representative from DLA Piper on?
John, I'm here. I'm not sure if Brian's on yet. He'll be joining us. He's overseas at the moment, so he's working with the time delay. But we're here. We're here to answer any questions. We gave you a pretty comprehensive presentation the last time. The only thing that is different from what we presented to the committee previously is that we worked to provide an easterly road section for the southern side to make it more clear. We were always preferring to provide the ultimate condition, but it was just easier for staff and for us to just put a section in the plan so that there's no confusion when we get to site plan. So we did that, and we also added some proffers, one for easterly road to provide a little more clarity, as I mentioned, and also to make the construction management proffer more robust to address some of the concerns from the neighboring community. So I think we're here to answer any questions that you may have. I know you have a full agenda, so I don't want to take up too much time.
Thank you, Kelly. It looks like Lynn, you have a question or comments.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Kelly. So I do see that this came before the Planning Commission on the 3rd of June, and it was deferred to the 10th when it went before the Planning Commission. And I don't know if what was presented to the Planning Commission included some of the items that were brought up at our the last meeting when you all came before P&Z. So, I mean, some of the items that I had just made note of, if you could just give me an update on these, I would really appreciate it.
Certainly.
One of the items from our last planning and zoning meeting was in the landscape plan, there were only 2 trees that were separating Lofts 2 from Lofts 1. And I was wondering if you all did make adjustments to the landscape plan to include more trees.
So we took a look at that, and we, our engineering team looked at like the soil volume and to see if they could create like a different panel on that side of the street. And we do think that we can get 3 trees on that side. So we did look at that. We had 2 before, and we did look at to see if the soil could accommodate a different, a 3rd tree. So yes.
Okay, so we're going from 2 trees to 3 trees?
Yes, that's all that can really fit on that.
Okay. And there was something about the retaining wall that was blocking the line of sight. Is that removed?
So the retaining wall is existing, so it's there today. And
Right.
what the Lofts ones residents had hoped was that could be one of the first things or the first thing that could
Exactly.
be removed. So Brian Winterhalter actually met with two members from the Lofts One community. They looked at the wall. We did add a proffer, and we have committed to do it as early as feasible. So we can't commit that it's like the absolute first thing, but we have proffered that we will do it as soon as
Okay,
as
can you
feasible
direct me
in
to
the
what proffer
process.
that is, what the number
Yes,
is?
definitely. It is 50. Sorry, I need to blow it up a little bit. It is 50G, removal of existing retaining wall.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then one of the other items was a construction management plan that the trucks that start going, the ingress and egress, that they use Samuel Morse instead of the Easterly Road.
Correct. We added that to 50B. So it's
Perfect.
in the middle of 50B.
Okay, and then the request for the terminology of periodic updates being changed to monthly, is that
Yep, that's
also okay?
50C. Monthly
Great.
electric. We changed it to monthly from
Okay. And then the trash removal from the Pulte employees, like to clean up after themselves, is that?
Yep, 50F.
Okay.
We added a site maintenance
So
proffer.
it sounds like everything is in 50.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Okay.
That's where all the construction management is.
Okay, and then
Oh, wait, is it 52? I think I'm misspeaking. It's 50. Yeah, no, it's 50. Sorry, 50.
okay, fantastic. So I did have a chance to review the planning commission meeting. And I just want to thank, and I think you all should thank Commissioner Carter for all of his hard work in bringing this to fruition. But it sounds as though the motion was made to approve this at the planning commission. And it sounds as though the snow removal and the dust management plan is and that is included, because I think the proffers that I
Yes.
have are prior to the planning commission meeting. So I think what I'm looking at is probably not the most up to date.
Right, so it's the June 10th ones, and what Commissioner
Oh,
Carter
June
had
10th.
asked us to remove one section of the dust management plan that we had, so we did that. And then with the snow removal, there's a snow consortium that's just being sort of like it's beginning now, so they're in the process. Pulte has committed to participate in it and play their fair share. They're still working through the details. So in case that stalls or whatever, Commissioner Carter had asked that we add a portion that says basically the applicant will provide snow removal or coordinate with the consortium. So we added that will provide snow removal. So we're covered either way. So they are anticipating that they will participate with a group of surrounding property owners to do this. And they have agreed to participate and pay their fair share, but they're still working through the details. So if anything,
Okay.
regardless, it's covered because it says they'll provide snow removal. That's
Okay, yeah,
52.
I may be looking at the incorrect set of proffers. I think the one that I have is June 5th.
Oh, that's right, because these were done right after planning commission, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly. That's all I've got, John. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. David or Sue?
Yes, I'll start. Generally speaking, I do support the Lofts 2 plan, and I appreciate your working with adjacent neighbors and Supervisor Alcorn and Commissioner Carter. Yet, Reston PNC committee raised several concerns at our April meeting and again at our May meeting that I believe still remain. First, the applicant's stormwater runoff cited 43% water retention on site for 1 inch rainfall. Your updated proffer now cites 50% retention. And while that's better, it's still low in comparison to other TSA projects in Reston that we've recently reviewed. I'm thinking about Reston Town Center West, which committed to 72% stormwater retention on site. So I asked Lofts 2 to take a look at ways to further improve the BMP's stormwater management system. My second concern is the proposed black roofs on your residential buildings. While black may show less dirt and look modern, it's not the best building material to use for long-term maintenance and certainly not for sustainability. Committee members in April and in May recommended green roofing, which offers numerous benefits. Cooler buildings resulting in lower electric bills for your apartment residents, increased stormwater retention or infiltration, providing cleaner air. Green roofs reduce noise, a concern that you actually address in your updated proffer number 38. A green roof would also provide habitat for pollinators, increasing our food source. And green roofing would offer an attractive view from nearby high-rise buildings, namely Comstock and Marriott, whose office employees and hotel residents have a bird's eye view of the Lofts 2 property. And for these reasons and many more that William Pegues previously offered, I would urge the applicant to use green roofing somewhere in their plan. And that sort of brings me to my third and my last concern, which is a lack of recreational amenities on site. This refers to your proffer number 31. I understand that you have designed public outdoor spaces and pocket parks as described in your proffer number 30. These are mostly passive activities. And so what I see missing from the Lofts 2 application is sort of a vibrant mix of active and passive amenities designed specifically for your 46 townhouses and your 112 multifamily residences. These amenities might include a rooftop deck for grilling, picnics, community gatherings, a rooftop pool or courts for active recreation, a rooftop garden or urban farming. Imagine pots of garden plants that produce food. I think Michelle pointed out at the May meeting about the lack of grocery stores nearby. An indoor fitness room or a yoga studio. Certainly there's a fitness facility within a mile of this site. However, it's unaffordable for many of the people who will live here. Another amenity would be indoor workspaces or lounges where people who work from home have opportunities to meet others doing the same, exchange ideas, kind of a work play place where the creativity flows. And, while some people might think of these amenities as belonging in luxury residential buildings, it's not exclusive. The future of multi-residential housing is changing, and it's more demanding, and the hard line between work and leisure is being erased, and where we work and play is important. So what I'm asking Pulte, the developer, is to imagine some combination of the above amenities. Maybe 3A multifamily building could offer a rooftop garden farm. Perhaps on 2A, a rooftop deck with a pool or courts. In 2B building, an indoor fitness room and or a quiet work meeting lounge. All townhouse and multifamily residences would then have access to all of these Lofts 2 amenities on site. Right now, I don't see amenities for the people who live here. Reston certainly needs more housing. They need more multifamily units. And what Lofts 2 projects could offer Reston and offer the county is an exciting, vibrant plan, a model for multifamily buildings. This is going to be a model for much more multifamily housing that will happen in Reston, especially near the TSA. So tonight I'm going to be voting no because of the concerns I've just raised and the concerns in April and the concerns in May that I feel have not been addressed. I sincerely hope the applicant will return to our committee next month with revisions and improvements we've asked for. And then I can vote yes on a truly high quality Pulte project. But this is not high quality yet. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Sue. David, did you have anything to add?
No, I'm perfectly in concert with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Adam, I see that your hand is up. However, I'm going to go through the Planning and Zoning Committee first, and then I'll circle back to you. So next would be Tammy.
Thank you very much. And I could not agree more with Sue Straits. This is sort of a warning for all applicants coming now. We are getting more and more density, and all of these promises that of stuff's going to happen. The county has not indicated that they have a budget to increase the infrastructure around these projects. But still we're being inundated with more and more density. And Sue's exactly right. When you're bringing in the kind of population you're bringing in to the corridor especially, you have to be responsible for those people. They are not cordwood, they are humans, and they have to have significant outdoor space for active recreation. Saying that you put up a bench under a tree is not going to make it. So please pay attention to that, and please give us some extraordinary, different, creative, recreational and open space plans. I'm not seeing it either. I'm also concerned about where is there public parking nearby? There's not a lot in this plan for the number of dwelling units you're adding here. So parking and park space are the two things that I am having a really hard time with this. I'm just sick that the Planning Commission has had this for a vote already. But that's the way some vagaries of our schedule. I too will be voting no. Thank you, unless you come up with some, other things, and I don't think you can do it on the fly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tammy. Is there anyone else on P&Z that would like to say anything? And John Carter, I'll get to you next. I don't think anyone's raising their hand. John, do you have anything you'd like to add? Oh,
No, I'm not sure what I can add. It's back and forth with this is an interesting discussion. We have a RA in Reston, and this developer is one of the few that's elected to join RA. I believe that's the case. So what do you do with that? RA is the one providing recreation in some of these areas. So I'm not sure where to go on this one. So the planning commission has already acted last week. And so it's on to the supervisors. I guess these comments can go to the supervisors at this point.
okay. Thank you, John. I saw Michelle raise her hand at the last second there. Michelle?
Sorry, I couldn't get to the button sooner. The only thing I'd like to add is I think the visuals of the playground are really, really bad, guys. That you got to do something better on that playground. I don't know where this goes tonight, but that just looks like the most sparse, sad playground I've ever seen. So please improve that before whatever happens and, whatever you build. Thank you.
It's like, Tammy, did you raise your hand again?
Yes, please. The problem is there are no RA facilities close to this. So John is correct in that we're thrilled that the residents will be RA members. But RA doesn't have property or parks or facilities or amenities in the corridor. So, that's a problem, and that's where the owners have to come forward and provide for their people. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. David and Sue, your hand is still up. Are either of you wanting to say something else? Or just a remnant?
I'm sorry. No, we need to take the hand down. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just making sure. Okay. Anyone else on P&Z? All right. Adam, thank you for waiting patiently.
Thank you.
Just remember to
Adam
state your name and
Rubenstein.
address. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Adam Rubenstein. I'm on the board for Lofts 1. You want my actual street address too?
Yes, please.
11200 Reston Station Boulevard. I wanted to thank Commissioner Carter. He's been very helpful in trying to get some of the proffers changed based on our feedback. I just wanted to follow up on a few items that are still outstanding from our perspective. Power washing was a big one, and Pulte really pushed back hard on that one. Why, I don't know. I'm a believer, and you should leave it the way you found it. And so at the urging of Commissioner Carter, they offered $1,000 to power wash our building at the end of construction, which we found frankly insulting, because that would not come even close to what it would cost to clean the building and the windows and balconies, which are going to get coated in dust. So we asked Commissioner Carter to remove that proffer, which he did at the meeting last week when it was approved by the Planning Commission. So that's why it's no longer there. We don't want to be limited to a proffer of $1,000. So we expect and hope, even though it's not in the proffers, that Pulte will do what they should do and clean our building when it's finished with their construction. Snow removal, and I know I mentioned this in a previous meeting. Pulte was responsible for the roads around us. They haven't been doing it until I call them days after the snow ends. Fairfax County Code says within 24 hours at the end of a snow event. That's why we added that in. Thankfully, thanks to Commissioner Carter. The issue I have is, and I was at that meeting with the one meeting we had about a possible cost sharing agreement. And I don't think it should be in the proffers. It doesn't exist. I don't think it's going to exist. And it really doesn't matter. It's Pulte's responsibility. It should just say Pulte's responsible for moving the snow within 24 hours. How they go about doing that is their business. But I feel like they're trying to take credit for something that doesn't exist. And I don't think it is going to exist. And Pulte is the one that's holding this up anyway, because they promised to do a little research for the rest of the people that were at that meeting, and they've yet to do so. On June 2nd, Don Hughes said, I'll have it to the end of the week. Didn't happen. I asked on June 9th. He's like, well, we're getting this done free by somebody, so it's not a high priority. They're just dragging their feet. They're trying to take credit for something that I don't think is even going to happen. So that should be removed from the proffers as far as snow removal. It should just say Pulte's responsible, period. The last thing I'll bring up, which is not related to Lofts 2, but has affected Lofts 1, and I was stopped by a homeowner recently about this. When they installed the carpet in our units, the subcontractor they used didn't do it properly. They didn't stretch the carpet properly when they installed it. So what happened was it buckled in every single unit. And this happened a few years ago. We brought this to our attention, and they refused to do anything about it. And it just, to me, just shows you the kind of company they are and where their priorities or lack of priorities, in my opinion, are at. So that's all I have to say. I'm happy, if you have any questions, feel free, but I appreciate your time and Commissioner Carter's time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Matt Stevenson.
Thank you, John.
Say,
Yeah, I just
John,
wanna-
a comment that might be useful, John Kupla.
Sure.
John, do you have a comment?
Yeah, Commissioner Carter wants to speak up real quick, Matt.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
was thinking about this and the evolution of this. We all need to get smarter on these. And this happens often. Here's basically the last project out of 7 or 8 projects that have occurred over here. There was a lot of discussion on this project, as Adam will attest to, the compatibility Lofts 1 to Lofts 2. And so we worked through those quite a lot. There hasn't been a discussion of recreation on these. And there are some other issues, that perhaps the green roof idea, more elaborate recreation space, these compatibility issues. Waiting till the end, it is not going to get us very far, because the last person is usually is often the smallest person and really can't go back in time. So what I've been noticing, whether I was involved, of course, I've been involved in many of them. This is happening more and more as we move through development in Reston. Reston's getting more mature. So being smarter at the beginning would be a good notion on these things, rather than waiting for the last project that come in. We have a whole host of things that have happened, like the crosswalk across Wheelie that everybody was looking for. That was last in the phasing, which probably should have been first. There's some sidewalks along the north, things like that, more elaborate recreation space. We all need, including myself, need to be smarter at the beginning, where it's more possible to get some of these more elaborate and perhaps more useful even spaces. So I just want to point that these.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Back to you, Matt.
Thank you, John. I wanted to talk a little bit about the elevation design. I know we're not a architectural review board. Did you meet with DRB? I thought I heard earlier that you had.
We met with the Reston Association, but we did not go to DRB.
Are you planning on meeting with DRB?
No.
All right. Well, in that case, I will put on my architect hat. And, I've got some pretty big concerns with the overall exterior design, especially of the multifamily buildings. You're calling out on your elevations, lap siding, board and batten, panel. I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that all 3 of those products would be Hardy or something equivalent to that.
I think I don't personally know. Don, do you know? I'm trying to look at the elevations. I have the plan.
Typically, that's Hardy.
I would assume that that's what's being implied here. I think my concern is looking at all of this holistically. There's a lot of Hardy, which is an okay material, but it's not a very premium material, and it's not something that elevates this project. There's a little bit of masonry at the water table, and you have a little bit at the entries and some other areas, but I think this project would benefit a lot from some more detailed studies into the elevation design. The facades are extremely flat. If you look at the plans, you have a little bit of articulation, but I think this project would really be nice if you studied the corners and the middle pieces and tried to do something a little bit more architecturally significant, and that might include introducing more masonry to the project or more detailing. It's very, very basic right now. The other thing is, the roof line, you've got some ups and downs if you're looking at the elevation. Based on the floor plans and what I'm seeing with the window spacing, that seems like a very, I guess, ornamental or non-functional move, where essentially you're just building a really tall parapet in the middle, but there's nothing behind that. I think there could be an opportunity of raising the ceilings or doing some loft units or something like that, where you could integrate some windows coming up that volume and actually make it so it doesn't look like this big white, just empty volume that's kind of sitting on top of the building. I just think the architecture feels really unresolved, and I understand where you are in this process. I'm familiar with this myself, but I don't think this is getting there. If we're really trying to look at Reston as a place where we're encouraging really high-end, cutting edge architecture that's going to help define this community. I think this still needs a lot of work. That's all I got.
Thank you, Matt. Looks like David and Sue, your hand back up again.
Yes, it is. A couple of comments. Mr. Carter, with all due respect, you are absolutely wrong about the issue of these things being raised at the last minute. The issue of green roofs, the issue of lack of recreational amenities, and the issue of stormwater management have all been discussed in the last couple of months of meeting with this developer. And so I'm not quite sure where you came up with that, but I would be prepared if no other comments. I'd be prepared for motion.
David, looks like Tammy just raised her hand. Yes,
Yes, David, I don't think Commissioner Carter is talking about this project in alone. He's talking about over time. We
Yes.
have not, I mean, we may have addressed it. Have you seen plans where active recreation have been given? Have you seen plans that you're so thrilled about that, you're breathless? I've been sitting on this board for a long, long time. It's been a long time since I've seen a plan that I'm like, this is worthy. This is exceptional. So, I take issue with, I don't think you're interpreting correctly what Commissioner Carter's comment was aimed at. I think he's talking about a long range issue and sort of encouraging us to expect more
Yes.
before we just approve things because it's been put before us. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the
all.
way. But just as an example, sorry to break in, John, but Lofts 1, which was, I think, 7 years ago, where many of us weren't even involved, they don't even have an open space. They don't have loading docks. They don't have some of your basic entrance points. I forgot the name of the townhouse project across the street. They have even less than Lots 1. The EYA has some recreation, but it's easier for them because it's a larger project. But I'm just saying in areas like this where you're anticipating there's at least 7 or 8 developments, to wait till the last minute. We should, and I'm not being critical. Well, I am being critical to all of us, I guess, to bring these things up at the beginning would be more effective. Waiting till the last project, which is often the smallest one, to do the amenities, which we do this all the time, it is not effective as we might be. So I'm just saying, in the future, as we get more of these kinds of projects, we ought to be mindful of things that should happen sooner in the process rather than waiting till later. And I don't think, if you look at Lofts 1, that there's nothing there. They couldn't even get loading space. They couldn't get the open space. If you look at the open space on that, it's a small space sort of in the back that's really not much of an open space. So that was an example. And one of the things that needed to be fixed the best we could on this project. Anyway, just a thought for the future as we move through.
Thank you, Commissioner. Lynn, looks like you raised your hand again.
I thought David and Sue had their hand up first.
Well, I think David was about to make a motion.
Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. Given the discussion, I agree with all of the points that Sue brought up. And I do think that, given that this has already been approved by the Planning Commission, I think that it would be in very good faith if the applicant would go back to the drawing board before they go to the Board of Supervisors and make some improvements to the plan. Granted, it is I don't think it's as last minute as it's purported to be, because as David and Sue brought up, it was discussed in April and May. But I think, Kelly, if you could go back and let the applicant know that, there are some big issues, because personally, I don't want to have to go testify before the Board of Supervisors to say that the Planning Commission had issues with this project. It would really be great if you all would go back and present something to the Board of Supervisors that is acceptable to the Reston Planning and Zoning. Thank you.
Kelly, would you like to, I know David was about to make a motion. Is there anything you'd like to say before that occurs?
And I will say this project started in 2019. This is the 8th version of it. We've worked with county staff for years and years. I mean, they've gone back to the drawing board many times. They've tried to work with the neighbors in good faith. This has been a very long process for Pulte, so I just would like to bring it up.
All right, thank you, Kelly. David, are you wanting to make a motion?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank Sue, and I would like to thank Lynn for that comment and those suggestions, and for Kelly. I suspect that means that they're not interested in attending to that. So I move that the Planning and Zoning Committee deny recommending this project to the Planning Commissioner. And I'm sorry. I recommend that I would like to move that we deny their application and forward that recommendation for denial to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. I don't sense that Pulte is at all interested in addressing any of these issues.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Okay, so members of the P&Z, please raise your hand through the chat. All in favor of the motion?
Of denial.
David and Sue, okay. So David, can you clarify if you're both voting for?
Deny.
Yes, it's 2.
All right.
So that's 8.
8. Okay, you can put your hands down. And all those opposed to the existing motion, please raise your hands. Matt, I believe, okay. Looks like we have 8-2. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any abstentions? Looks like we have 2 abstentions, William Penniman and Mike Jennings. Anyone else? Okay, motion passes. So Kelly, sorry for the outcome. I know it's not what you're looking for, but the committee has spoken.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you. All right, so moving on to the next item on our agenda. We have Reston Town Center North. The applicant is Fairfax County and Inova, and the applicant's representative is, I believe, Eric Inman from Fairfax County. Is that, Erica, are you on?
Yeah, I'm on. It's actually, Tim Sampson is taking lead on this for the meeting today.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Take
Thanks
it
for
away,
having us.
Tim.
Thank you. I will share my screen if you'll indulge me. Make that bigger. Oops. All right, thanks again. As Eric said, I'm Tim Sampson. I represent Innova Health System, and we are in a long running, as I think many of you know, work with Fairfax County on the kind of replanning of Reston Town Center North. It was interesting putting this slide deck together. We realized we were here last before you all on June 16th of 2025. So it made a very easy update to our deck here, but I thought it was interesting. It was just a day short of a year. We appreciate you having us back. We've been hard at work since we saw you last, kind of working through the regulatory review process for our applications, and are excited to present to you where we're at now. We are scheduled to go to the Planning Commission on July 22nd. So we're expecting staff report in the coming weeks, and I think we're very down to the kind of final bits of our process through the regulatory review. Here's the team. It's very similar to the last time you've seen it, and for many years. Again, the county and Innova kind of in, I say partnership, but not, it's a lowercase p. And Dave Sittler and I, Dominic Boniuto, are on the line for Innova. Eric is on the line. I believe Ryan is on the line as well for the county. And we have been bolstered and supported by our great design professionals for many years now at Land Design, and our civil team at Urban, and Will Johnson, our traffic consulting team at Galloway. This is a slide, as many of you are probably familiar with. I start with a lot to kind of set the base expectations for what we're talking about. This is the existing conditions of the site. I'm sure everybody knows where we're talking about. This is Barron Cameron Avenue to the top of the map, and New Dominion Parkway to the bottom. Bowman Town Drive bisects through here. Reston Regional Library just south of Bowman. Here is the Paramount Hotel. I see Gary's on the phone, probably from his unit there. I don't know. And the blue indicates property in the Reston Town Center North, owned by Innova, and the gray is the land owned by the county. And Innova and the county have been co-owners out here for a very long time. It goes back to the 70s and transfers into the 80s. Innova built what was the first, as we understand, standalone ER in the country here at the Access Hospital back in the late 70s, and the site has developed over time. This is our timeline side. It keeps getting longer and longer. Remarkably, it started back in the 2010 timeframe when we went through early Reston Master Plan update through a prior comprehensive plan review. I'm not going to belabor all of this. We filed a zoning application eventually in 2017. We had changes to the plan occur through the Reston DRB process. We are part of RA. And so we have been attentive to the DRB process along the way. As everybody knows, there was a new Reston Master Plan process that began in 2020 and concluded in 2023. A task force then helped identify public uses for the site. We filed our updated zoning applications in April of 2025. And as I said, we've been working ever since to bring them forward. The upshot of that long trajectory there is this slide here, and I think it's a picture that tells more than 1,000 words, and I will certainly use fewer than that. But what this demonstrates is a plan. It's a grid of streets and resultant blocks that orient themselves around a central green, identify public uses, eventual Innova or private uses. And I think, as most of you know, the idea is that eventually the land would be subdivided and Innova would own blocks 2, 4, and 6. And those are planned for a mix of uses, residential and non-residential. Could be some medical, could be retail, some other commercial. And then the county sites identified for a public school on block 1, the relocated Reston Regional Library on block 3, Emory Rucker Shelter relocating onto Block 5, and eventually the Health and Human Service building that's currently up here on the northern part of the site relocating into Block 5, an athletic field to be built on Block 7, and a Fairfax County Park Authority Recreation Center on Block 8. The component parts of this, importantly, were approved conceptually by the RADRB. They were then moved forward into the comprehensive plan in 2023, the adoption of that. As I said, the county, there was then a separate task force that finalized in November of 23 that identified kind of the location of these public uses. And so all of this right here is a foundation for what we're bringing forward tonight and to the Planning Commission in July. Really, there's a lot of layers to it, but it's a very simple proposition. It's to take what has been approved here in the comp plan and through the DRB process and to advance it to the first phase of the zoning set of applications to further advance the project. And this is an excerpt from the currently pending development plan, which, as you can tell, toggle back and forth here between the slides. We have been very, very cognizant of staying true to the foundational planning documents that have brought us here. So the plan today, as very much like you've seen before, a grid of streets surrounding a central green in a configuration very consistent with the approved plans before it. There are several long identified tree save areas on the site where there are some high quality trees that would be preserved within the blocks. There is a lot of conversation we've been having over the past year on the streetscape that surrounds these blocks, and everybody knows how important the elements of the streetscape are in an urban-like environment like this. And so a lot of detail on the widths of sidewalks and areas where there are shared use paths for bicycles and pedestrians, and wider Reston specific streetscape. And Stephanie Pankowitz from Land Design is going to describe that to you in greater detail later. But it's those features of the project that we've been focused on in this initial application. And I keep referring to it as the initial or kind of the phase 1 zoning because there is more to follow. There is, as many of you know, there are not buildings proposed for development on these blocks. So we are yet in a place to be able to have the conversations you were having with the last applicant. We look forward to being back through the process with applications that propose to redevelop these blocks someday and have that level of conversation. At this point, again, we're trying to get to is a established grid of streets that we can then subdivide the existing property boundaries and allow these blocks to begin to redevelop. This is a long list then of kind of what I just talked about. I don't like words too much on slides, but I think it's important to emphasize what we're proposing now versus what will come later. And again, it's not to be too repetitive, but right now we're looking at block layout, uses, maximum development program, the grid of streets, the central green concept, the framework of the streetscape, the framework for the open space, tree save, and stormwater management. And it really provides an envelope within which later applications are going to come back and propose the detail that you're used to seeing in other cases that have come before you, block layouts, individual buildings, detailed architecture, where the entrances to buildings are going to be, and loading locations, landscaping within the blocks, all of these sorts of things, including, again, other potential for tree save and open space within those blocks, the details for stormwater management, that sort of thing. So how does all these later things come back? They come back to you through the same process that you're familiar with. We'll file a PRC plan for each of the blocks that will probably involve also proffered condition amendment for each of the blocks and those sorts of things, so that we are trying now to set up the opportunity for each of these blocks to come back to you one at a time, or maybe a couple at a time. We'll see how it goes. I'll talk a little bit about phasing later, but I'll just pick on, if block 2 comes back in, we'll have a framework for the boundaries of block 2, We'll have said a lot in the proffers about what Block 2 needs to provide when it comes back for its later applications. And we'll go through all of this process that you're familiar with again. So your approval, the approval we're hoping to get from you tonight is a nod in the direction of the framework we're taking on. It's not the final approval that we need to move forward. I have our development plan, and this is even more granular. I'm really not going to belabor this, but we do have in the development plan and guardrails on what can happen within those spaces, right? There are a set of tabulations that describe the maximum heights and the maximum non-residential building areas and the range of non-residential building areas and the allocation of the dwelling units and what happens when the ADU ordinance is applied or the WDU recommendations are applied, and there are bonuses associated with that. So the point of this is not to belabor all these numbers. It's to, again, let you know that within these blank spaces that we're showing now, the application we have has guardrails for what comes later. And then finally, I want to show something that I want to preface before I even show it. Like what I'm going to show you next is not part of our application, and it's almost, I've told you all about how we haven't designed any buildings, and we really haven't, but we have been concerned that over the course of a year or more, talking about blank spaces in between streets, it has the effect of leaving people concerned about, what to expect there, and is what's coming next too big? Will it fit? Will it relate at all to the character that we're trying to describe for the place we're creating? And so we have developed a very conceptual massing study. And what this massing study does is it takes the detail here for the framework that we're establishing, the guardrails that we're establishing for these blank spaces in between, and we are presenting, if you build that out, here is one way it could look, right? And I hasten to say, we're not proffering this. It's not part of our submission. But it is meant to provide context for you all that to get a sense of the scale and the feel of the place. I'll say too, I should have said in the beginning, this is oriented 180 degrees from the other slides, so that you could see it in a context of Reston Town Center. So you're looking from north to south across the site rather than the other slides. But you see, this would be the Block 1 school site, residential on Blocks 2, 4, and 6, and it gets more intense as you get closer to Reston Town Center, but stays lower than the Paramount, which is a key feature of the comprehensive plan. This is the relocated County Health and Human Services building with the shelter behind it. Here's the Block 3 library. The existing governmental center, wouldn't be changing. So again, I can't say enough that this is not part of the application. And you've heard me say many, many times how we're not developing buildings right now. And it's true, we are not, but we wanted to provide a sense of scale so that you could have a sense of what to expect when we come back later in terms of massing and scale, that we have a project that I think fits in its environment in relation to the spectrum, in relation to things around it, and provides for a very, very meaningful open space in the central green. And with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Stephanie Pankowitz from Land Design, and let Stephanie kind of pick it up from here with some of the placemaking thoughts and considerations, and then get a little more detailed on the kind of public realm that I've been describing that is really the subject of these applications. Stephanie.
Great. Thank you, Tim. And just to check that my audio is fine this evening.
You're good.
Okay, great. If you'll go to the next slide, as Tim noted, we have been here before you all several times, and coincidentally just a year ago. So the purpose of this slide was really at a glance to label some of the key updates. There obviously have been a number of proffer and calculations and others along the way, But at a high level, this plan shows you certain elements like Street A has been realigned to improve the intersection condition. We've also increased the central green square foot area by doing this. You see a little key map in the lower left-hand corner where we have laid out the interim central green condition to show how pathways and the framework will be set. And then as each block is built out, then ultimately the central green will be provided, but it will be a very meaningful park space that will connect the neighborhood in the meantime. The final central green amenities have been strengthened as well in regards to the different programming, park areas, lawn areas, playgrounds, and stormwater management approach, along with the landscape, of course. And then the applicant has committed to address the stormwater calculations to the comprehensive plan approach, not just the minimum public facilities manual requirements. Additionally, as Tim noted, each street has been carefully studied for the pedestrian, bicycle, and streetscape dimensions. And we have widened sidewalks. We've added additional shared use paths and committed to the Reston specific streetscape on several key frontages. And if you go to the next slide, Tim, it focuses more on the updated pedestrian and bicycle hierarchy. And as I noted, it's not a one design fits all for each block. We want each block to be very specific to how the frontage, how the bike lanes work, how the sidewalk lists work, so that's a very legible circulation system. So Library Street is the primary north-south from Barron Cameron to Bowman Town Center Drive, and then of course Reston Town Center ultimately. We also have the wider 8-foot wide sidewalks on Cameron Glen as a primary east-west connection. And then Street A is an important civic node near the Central Green and future school sites. So you'll see in the legend, we have the primary pedestrian routes, the secondary routes, shared use paths, bike lanes, sharrows, additionally where we plan for bike share and parking locations. So since we met with you last, the shared use paths and bike connections have really been enhanced, particularly on the perimeter of the site. We do want that to be where the higher speed cyclists would be accommodated, and the internal streets are planned to be slower street or pedestrian friendly. If you'll go to the next slide, Tim. These are just a few representative examples from the overall submission that shows the streetscape section. And really, we're showing them here not to study every inch of the A and K on the street, but just to give them to you as an example that the entire assemblage has carefully been studied, whether it's step outs next to on-street parking, travel lane width, the landscape amenity panel, sidewalk width, and building zone. We've looked in great detail at each specific block condition. And additionally, this is relayed back again in written form and the proffer language. And so we really want to, as Tim noted, set out the framework that can be approved now at the development plan that will allow for the final engineering, utilities, site distance that will happen at the later phases. If you'll go to the next slide, Tim. So this is an enlargement that you've seen very similarly through the process, because as you know, we did a community survey, we had town hall meetings last year, and this takes into account everything we heard through the community process, that people wanted trees and shade, places to sit and reflect, access to green space, flexibility for some events, but having everyday use as a primary key consideration. So the program is a large events lawn. There's plazas, there's tree groves, shaded seat areas, picnic areas, a playground, a restroom building that includes a drinking fountain, bike racks, locations for potential public art, and also, again, the stormwater management that is really part of the entire landscape plan and integrated into the park. We also have across Street C a potential tabletop, subject, of course, to final FCDOT and VDOT approval, but it would really strongly connect to the county blocks and the civic uses adjacent and allow for, very safe mid-block pedestrian crossing. And then the character images at the bottom just give you a sense of the flavor. And then if you go to the next slide, Tim, there is a very schematic bird's eye view that is, I think several of you have seen this in the past meetings. It just is intended to give you that sense of scale of the open lawn and the components. And obviously the new rendering that has conceptual massing, highlights that even more, as Tim was sharing. So you can see the scale buildings around it and that it's very integrated into the neighborhood. And then the next slide, Tim, shows the interim green central condition adjacent to what we're anticipating will be the first two blocks. And it really is to be very transparent about what would be built day one, and that it's not going to, the previous slides are not going to be built day one, but the final ultimate condition will come later. But that the day one condition does provide key community benefits, including usable public open space very early as the blocks are being redeveloped. There'll be lawn, pathways, seating, trees, and lighting, and so forth. So we're just trying to think through construction and delivery as the ultimate blocks are built out around the park. And then finally, the last slide before I turn it back to Tim and to planning and zoning is just the next steps where we are this evening, the planning commission date that is being scheduled. And now I'll turn it back to Tim to wrap up the presentation and for Q&A.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, the only other thing I was going to touch on is this part of the previous slide that was, we're calling the anticipated first phase. I believe it's the case when we were last presenting to this group that we were less clear than we are today about what's likely to come first. And so we are much clearer now that that the likely scenario is that blocks 3 library and blocks 5 shelter will be developed in the first phase and with the central green. So as Stephanie said, what happens then is this portion of the surrounding street network is built. The central green is built in its final configuration, just not in the final level of improvement that it will eventually get. The library is built and the shelter is built then on the southern portion of this block is the current plan. And then from there, to anticipate a question which may come, which is, okay, well then when does the central green go from that condition to this condition? The proffered commitment is that will happen with either the second phase of development on block 5, which is anticipated to be the relocation of Health and Human Services building down here, or the second building on the Inova blocks to occur, so that there's an interim period of time where the green exists in its final configuration, but an interim state. And we think that's important, as Stephanie had alluded to, for construction phasing, with the construction going on during some of this work, especially the construction of a building here, not to have it a final condition. And then also you'll see that this portion of the central green in the interim condition is not as finished with as much landscaping, because in order to then construct the the playground that will go here and the other hardscape and stage opportunities, that sort of thing that Stephanie described down here. We don't want to have be in a place of tearing up what we had just most recently put in. So wanted to highlight that as kind of a what to expect next as this proceeds before we tie it off. So thanks for listening to our presentation, and that's where we're at. Again, I forgot to mention, we actually have an open house that you're probably familiar at the Government Center tomorrow night. All are welcome, so maybe we'll see some of you there as well.
All right, thank you,
So,
Tim.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter, is there anything you'd like to say before we get going here?
Just a couple things, perhaps. One, after the last project, I think we ought to thank Stephanie Bankowitz and the applicant for just the thoroughness that is exhibited on this project. We don't see this very often. And if you want to do these things as a group, this is an example. I know they've worked on it for a long time, and so they know all about it. But I think it's worth saying. Things like we were talking about recreation on the last one, and so Stephanie and the applicant pointed out that, okay, here's the interim park, and we're going to have some recreation there, but it will be designed in a manner so that as the buildings start filling in, the recreation can be enhanced. So you get the idea of a commitment. The one thing I wasn't sure about is the phasing of the streets. Are we getting ready to do that now, or does that sort of happen as the blocks come in?
Yeah, John. So let's see. Good question. So when the anticipated first phase would build a lot of the streets, actually, right? Because it would bring, I'll just start down here. This is Library Street extended, and it would come up between, again, if you can imagine our other image, right? There's a street that connects all the way through here, Cameron Glen extended, and a street that connects roughly here, which is called Street D. So Library Street would eventually come up and continue out to Barron Cameron. But in that first phase, it would be built, to this point, and then it would be framed by Street A, and it would be framed by, we call Street C, and we'll of course have better names for these by the time we're done. And so there's this portion of Cameron Glen Drive exists today, right there adjacent to the North County Government Center. And so those portions of the grid would be in place with phase one. And then you could think about then in your mind's eye, without the plan up, like what's left is the extension of Library Street up here, which could happen when one of these blocks redevelops. The extension of Street A, I guess we're calling it Street D, come to think of it, this way, which would happen when one of these blocks redevelop. The extension of Cameron Glen this way, which would happen when this block redevelops, and then the extension of Library Street all the way through, which would happen when one of the blocks 7 or 8 down here redevelop. So again,
and Tim, I just wanted to note for the group that in the development plan, the hard set that everyone received last week, if you go to L-6.11 and L-6.2, what Tim was just describing on screen is actually laid out in a pictorial block by block.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. That's great.
So what one might be asking, what are you asking the Planning Commission or the P&Z Committee, the Planning Commission, or Board of Supervisors to actually approve this time? And I'll take a stab at that. So it's the block layout.
Right.
It is the uses on each block. It's sort of the guardrails, I like that term, that goes along with each block. And then perhaps more importantly, it's the streets with a fair amount of detail on the design of those, and then the design of the interim park. And then although you said that the concept is not cast in stone, it does give folks an impression of how big or little this is. And that's about all that would be asked, I think, is to understand how big or little this is. But that's what the action that tonight's going to set in motion. Is that
That's
fair?
right. That is fair. The only thing you said interim central green, but I think also the final. So we're thinking of it as the grid of streets that allow the blocks to result, the streetscape that surrounds them, and then the
Yes.
central green in both of its interim and final conditions.
Yeah, so it's the interim, what's going to be done in the short run, and then you have a design for the final, which will be
Well,
when
we
that
have
occurs.
Well, we have this. This is the proposed final design. Of course,
Yes,
there will be much more final design, as you said, landscape
yes,
plans. But we would not, in the way we have framed this, we would not be back for a later zoning approval for the final central green. We would be going off to. We need further DRB approvals. We of course need site plan approvals, landscape plans, all of that sort of thing.
good. I just wanted to be clear on what the action is tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, Lynn Molston.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. I have one request and two questions. Going forward, it would really be helpful if you could number the pages on the materials that we receive. The presentation, so I'm assuming that the first page is a title, and then when I reference the page numbers, or I'll just say that it's either page number. So looking at slide number 8 or 9, and this would be the development plan tabulations. How many units are we talking about total?
The total, so the comp plan recommends 1,000 units among the 3 blocks.
Well, it's
And then-
1440, but yeah.
Pardon me?
I think the last version I had was 1440 total.
1440.
Maybe I'm
Oh.
looking at an old version of the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, no, the comprehensive plan, yeah, it's 1,000 units is what the comprehensive plan recommended. So
Okay.
1,000 would be the total. Now that what we've tried to do here again for full transparency is say at the end of the day, when you apply the bonus provisions for WDUs and ADUs, you end up with more units. So we got 2 scenarios. One is you may recall, Lynn, is a multifamily option on block 2. So that would be all multifamily for the 3 blocks. And then the other is a single family option for block 2. And so there's a slight differential there on the application of those ADU formulas, but very close, right? One way you end up with either 170 or 170 potential bonus units. And so the maximum number that we're depicting here would be 1,072. So 1,000 kind of base units plus the 172 bonus units that come from the application of those affordable and workforce dwelling unit provision.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. I do want to commend you on the stormwater management plan that you're putting in place. Great job on that. Thank you so much. The second question that I had was on slide 13 or 14. And this was I guess it just shows the park view. That one. Is the roadway, is that on-street parking? Is there on-street parking around the park?
Yes, there will be in places, and you can tell, I think there are other places across this intersection they're not, for instance. But the intention is to have on-street parking as much as we can for all kinds of reasons. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Looks like Matt, you're next.
Thank you, John. Just want to commend the applicant on this package. I think it's coming along really nicely. I think the grid of streets and the large central open space is very nice, as well as the athletic field. Um, Nothing critical of what's been presented, but I think as this continues to develop, there's some really, really nice opportunities that this site offers. Actually, this is a good graphic. With the anticipated future library directly next to this park, that's certainly a compatible use. You'll get a lot of families and kids that will come out and use both of those things. I do think on blocks 2 and 4, that streetscape where it fronts the park is going to be really important. You called both of those out as mixed use, residential mixed use. I would love to see, a lot of integration of complete street concepts as this continues to develop. Traffic calming measures, wide sidewalks with a lot of outdoor seating, activated storefronts, really make this a place that is going to really drive, a lot of traffic to this area and to this park. And I think with the other surrounding features there, this could really become a special place in Reston, that, you know, starts to really, generate its own sort of life. I can see farmers markets and food truck fairs and um, all sorts of things, concerts, really, really making this a place. So that's just one of my thoughts. The other is, as you look at sort of the access points moving around the outside of the site, I'm kind of wondering where the like front door of the site is anticipated to be. There's obviously a lot of different ways that you can come in here. I think it's only a right in off of Barron Cameron. You're not crossing the median there. So where that front door is, I think can tell an important story that can like let people know as they're driving by that this Central Park and all of this is, part of this development and could help to facilitate that wayfinding. So that's something I think maybe take a look at as well. Um, and then finally, yeah, actually, I guess that's about it. I just think that, as this develops, really prioritizing like the pedestrian experience and these activated spaces is something that could make this really special. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate that. And I went to this graphic because we're very much aligned in thinking about making sure we're setting up that opportunity and the primary streets. I agree with you. There are several front doors in a way. And we're very mindful of the block 4 frontage in particular, and how it relates to the green. So thank you for those comments. Appreciate
I just remembered my last point. As this comes online, I mean, this is a big project. It encompasses a lot of parcels and a lot of acreage. One thing that we haven't done in Reston that I can remember, but it could be something to study, is some sort of temporary uses on any of these sites if they're undeveloped for some time. I'm thinking of like the Burrow in Tyson's or the bullpen, outside of the Nats Stadium in DC, but some type of a like temporary, you know, installation that people could come out and use and would drive foot traffic to the site as some of these blocks come online, because this could be like, a 10 or 15-year build out or something like that. So just something to think about.
That's a great point, Matt. Thank you. Amy Andrews.
Hi, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I live in Reston Town Center, kind of right across the street from all of this. So I definitely like the much more organized way of the streets and things, and definitely a lot of those buildings could use renovation and or completely new ones. I guess I'm just kind of wondering, and I know this doesn't go to the where things are plotted out because I really like the way things are looking now. What is being discussed to make sure, there are a lot of people that hang around on these streets currently. If you drive through that area, if you walk past that area, depending on where you're walking, there are certain people that families playing in a park may feel a little nervous around at times. And that, I know this is kind of not the I don't know, this is the elephant in the room a little bit. What is, to think about these blocks and to think about how we are going to accommodate for what seems like a growing number of people who need housing facilities and assistance from the county. What is kind of proposed in expanding what we currently have, in, what's going to happen when we begin moving things around and taking out areas, wooded areas where many people have tents at this time, and moving and then putting parks and ball fields. How much is that in discussion? Because that is going to displace where some people are, and it is going to bring a different group of people to some of these areas than currently are there.
Yeah, that's a good question and a hard one, right? I think what I can tell you in response is several things, and then I'll let Eric, chime in from the county's perspective about the particular homeless shelter here. But I will say that it is a challenge that we certainly recognize because we've been dealing with it for a bunch of years. The former Cameron Glen nursing home, is something Inova eventually, shuttered and tore down because it was getting broken into by folks looking for shelter. So very sad circumstances, very challenging ones. Dominic Boniuto is on the line with Inova, has spent a lot of hours, and I give him a lot of credit, and I give Supervisor Alcorn's a lot of credit, and Mark, I believe, is on too, for managing very deftly, I think, a very challenging and sensitive kind of circumstance. So anyway, point is, we get it. And I think it's something that we're going to continue to have to figure out. And that hopefully, with a place, in fact, I don't think I've ever worked on a project that has a homeless shelter programmed in it. And so that will be something, but that is not at all to pretend that that's going to make the problem go away, because we recognize it's not. And then Eric, I don't know if you want to, from the county, jump in and describe anything further.
Well, this has been high on our list to try to figure out how to manage this and how to approach the unhoused population in this area, and what we can do about it to improve the situation. And so, as we know, there's a new shelter that has opened up that is for families, which will help alleviate some of the pressure in this area, as long as we have places to put people, to let them go. That'll give them the opportunities to not be here in tents and whatnot. The new facility is larger than the existing facility. The new facility will have emergency supportive housing, as well as more permanent housing. Then we will also be able to keep in mind that there's not going to be a lot of empty space as we go through and build this out, because we're going to be creating new in the empty space before we take down the previous facilities, and then we'll be developing those into new places. So I think trying to keep it active has been, and the planning of the phasing on the county's property. We've been cued in on trying to minimize that empty space, and then trying to activate when we get to a point where we have an empty space that needs to be activated. We will put in interim uses. But again, we're trying to fill in the empty spaces that'll minimize it, and activate those areas before taking the others offline and redeveloping them in their new facilities. So if that helps understand what our approach will be.
All right. Thank you. Amy, did you have other comments? No. Okay. Thank you. Reese.
Hey everybody, I just want to echo my colleagues on the committee's comments about the presentation. Thank you for this, and we can stay right here on this map. I just have a couple of questions. First of all, this is a very thorough map, probably the most thorough that I've seen in my brief stint on the committee here, showing what all is available. And I sort of have two broad questions here. And the first is about the consideration of the connectivity to the broader bicycle network in this area. I know it's primarily that Fairfax County bike trail that's what, a block or two to the west here, and then the WNOD to the south. Does this connection, has it been considered that east-west to those more high volume networks? That's sort of my first question. And my second is about some of these internal routes, which I understand to be primarily sharrows. And my comment is mainly just that sharrows, especially on some of these roads that I would expect to get higher vehicle traffic, really only appeal to cyclists who feel very comfortable. And just thinking about, you know, the grid layout here and how we want to get more people to that central park, it feels like some sort of protection on either bike lanes or some sort of barrier would be worth considering if we want to get, you know, families and younger kids using some of those bike facilities. And so I just want to ask broadly about the either present or future consideration of any sort of bike lane protection or separation, because I know also pedestrians aren't always a fan of those shared use pathways that can feel a little dangerous for them. So just wanted to feel out that consideration.
Stephanie, do you want to talk through the details of that?
I can also
Yes.
talk about it, Tim.
Yeah, if you maybe I'll just point to one thing, to the regional connectivity in the hard copy of the set, and it's called a pedestrian circulation plan, but on L-2.10, there's just an overall map where we do have like the connection to Metro and some of the RA trails and other key aspects. So just to the broader contextual, although it doesn't specifically address everything you just noted about the larger, that map is kind of helpful for some of the broader connectivity. But Dave, if you wanted to go ahead on some of the specifics, and then Will and I can jump into.
So one of the things that we have been wrestling with is just multimodal streets, both for transit, for cars, for pedestrians. You always want to make sure your streets are narrow to give them be much more pedestrian friendly. So we've been working with FCDOT to try and ring the site pretty much on all four sides, with the exception potentially of Fountain, of shared use paths, 10-foot wide shared use paths. So they are not your normal sidewalks. They're fairly wide. Internal, we have a grid of 8-foot wide sidewalks. I fully expect folks who have young kids are going to be on bicycles on those sidewalks, regardless of the pedestrians, and with on-street parking, narrow streets, these are all local streets within the context between Barron Cameron, Town Center Parkway, Fountain, and Bowman. Near the green, everything's a local street. So while we create a grid, the goal is to have low volume, low speed traffic throughout. And that's the reason we went with sharrows. Adding bike lanes, even protected bike lanes, doesn't work with the on-street parking. So we've had to basically kind of weigh which way we wanted to go. And we opted for the on-street parking because it helps to try and activate some of the street fronts.
So I guess the summary too is, I think, is just the perimeter we kind of have focused on, and the regulatory staff has helped us focus on, and frankly, the shared use path, while the interior much, quieter from a vehicular standpoint, streets, or would be the on-street sharrows. The other thing that is hard to, I think, pick up here, or it may be hard, is there's a lot of existing on-street bike lane that will remain. And Dave, and somebody correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but I believe that a lot of this on-street bike lanes on Fountain Drive, for instance, on Town Center Parkway, will remain, even though we're putting a shared use path, within the within the streetscape on site. So I think there's going to be a lot of bike facility and an opportunity for people with different levels of comfort to find their way.
And just to clarify, those bike lanes on Fountain, those are unprotected as well?
Yes, they are today. I believe, and again, please, anybody correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, they're currently unprotected. The county, though, FCDOT is moving away from on-street bike lanes. Their goal is to get it to, and that's the reason for the 10-foot shared use paths. Their goal is not to have bike lanes on street any further.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for the answers there.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Reese? You good?
Good.
William Penman.
Thank you. Just, I want to be sure I understand. We're just talking about the layout of the blocks, and so the draft proffers that you gave us, most of what's in there, we don't have to talk about tonight. And is that right?
You're welcome to talk, Bill, about anything in those you want. The draft proffers will apply to all of what we've been describing. And there is a lot in the draft proffers that say what we will do next, right? So in other words, while we don't have a building shown for you here on block 4, the proffers will say that when we come back, we're going to show you a whole list of things on here, and they do govern things like what other things they govern? Like there's discussion about what to expect for screening of garages, for instance, and locations of entrances off the street, and green building practices and those sorts of things. So there's a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, kind of guardrails built into those proffers for what will be coming next.
Well, guess I'm glad I asked. If you want to get home tonight, I think it'd be helpful to reassure us that if we don't raise the issues we would otherwise raise about things like green building standards, a whole host of things that we would like to discuss, we don't have to do it tonight, and nobody's going to say we missed our chance.
I would say, Bill, that I certainly would like to go home tonight. What we're proffering a green building. We have a green building proffer in there that when we come back with buildings, the buildings that you will see will meet the specifications that we've described, and those are the ones that are the county standards.
All right.
That's not to say, of course, as I said, every one of these blocks will come back for a new application for building approval and the opportunity to review those. So your opportunity to comment on the buildings that get designed within those blocks is certainly ongoing and will continue. We're in this place of wanting to demonstrate with as much clarity as we can what you can expect from us later, and assure you that there's an opportunity to continue to review what we propose for the blocks.
I'm not sure I fully understand that, but I'll just highlight things. There will be a time, and if it's in the future, that's fine. But the green building standards for an area that's supposed to be one of the premier areas of Reston should be higher than what is put here. The EV charging standards that the proffers are less than the county has gotten from other people, and those should be strengthened. And we can go through all that, but we could be here quite a while because other people are going to have similar issues about green roofs and a lot of issues. So if you're saying we lose our chance if we don't bring it up tonight, then I want to know that.
Yeah, so I'm let me say it very clearly. I'm sorry if I've been confusing. All of these to build a building in one of these blocks, the proponent of that building will have to come back through the zoning process and propose that building and go through all of what you're used to for a particular building. The proffers that we have out there are, an indication of where we're going to be when we come back with those applications, right? Just like, I like we would in any other circumstance, and we will happily engage the conversation with you if you don't think that we're providing the right amount of X, Y, or Z. We're happy to have that conversation and evaluate that when we know the specifics of what's being proposed at the time.
Okay, but you won't say that, oh, well, nice, we had a good conversation, but you agreed before that this is all we could expect.
I will not say, I promise you, we will not say that you agreed that we were done talking about any of this. Yeah.
Will you say we missed our chance to raise the issues and try to persuade the county, if not you or your developers? I mean, I like the idea of approving the layout there. That's fine. But I'm not prepared to agree to the proffers yet without more opportunity to study them and discuss them. So if you say that's deferred, fine. We'll talk about the layout, and I have only a few suggestions, but I want to know where we are. And I suspect other people are going to want to know that too.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it differently. We have no expectation that leaving here tonight means that you are done commenting on the buildings that come. And I will not say to you later that because you gave us an approval of what is on this plan today means that you have to like what comes in the block later. It's not
so these are floors, not decisions.
They are floors, not decisions. They are our
floors of your proffers, but not necessarily the final.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. We are proffering if it's a proffer. Yeah, I think that's a fair way to think of it. It's what we're committing to provide when we come back later. It is not an attempt to to say that because you gave us a recommendation of approval for the layout tonight, that you must approve what comes next. We're not trying to do that.
Okay. I'll accept that. Make sure the county knows that too.
That is noted.
And then with that in mind, let me just a few things on the layout. One is, personally, I'm sorry that the blocks got flipped and the residential is so far north, far away from the metro. So I would strongly urge that the proffers eventually incorporate some kind of internal transportation system to facilitate getting people to the metro. That'll help you meet the parking reduction and peak hour reduction standards, but it's also something that will actually help to connect this to the subway, where it was at least better when the residential is down at the bottom, not on the top of this diagram. So that is a comment. In terms of the streets within this area, I'd strongly urge you to have four-way stops throughout, because that'll help at traffic calming, which you're trying to achieve. And just seeing how it helps in other areas, I think that would be beneficial. As far as the central green goes, just a question. In the final version, I mean, if I were a kid and had kids or had my grandkids with me, the interim looks like it might be more fun. There are more ways to play than in the much narrower, much more structured final version. So take that little green area in the middle, or circled by trees. How much room is there and what opportunity? Will kids really be able to throw frisbees, chase each other, and play? Or with all the trees and everything else, is that going to be foreclosed?
Yes,
Stephanie,
this is Stephanie. We can get the dimensions for you in a little bit, Bill, if you'll give us just a minute. But I just want to assure you, yes, absolutely, that central green lawn is very significant in size and will provide incredible, I think you're talking about just kind of like free play opportunities.
Right, free play.
Run around, and absolutely we can very confidently say that that is the case. The entire central green is 3.63 acres. So that is a significant size of open space there. And if you'll give myself and my colleague Pat, who's on the call, just a minute, I can get you the actual dimensions and put it in the chat.
Yeah,
So
the larger lawn is
so I'm not going to ask you to change it or anything, but as you get through the interim, if you find that kids are playing all over the place, consider whether the final version should maybe be adjusted to preserve the fun that the kids and office workers are having. But I'll leave it at that for today.
Well, just for context, Bill, it's about the size of like a football field. And that central green is like 200 by 200, a small field.
If that green area, if that little green circle there is that big, that's fine. That should give a fair amount of room for people to play.
Absolutely.
Just the one other sort of general comment, and again, not to resolve anything today, but you showed us a picture of the mass, sort of a massing picture to give a flavor. And all I would say is my reaction to is it looked pretty ordinary. Everything was uniform, stick-built height, it looked like, and it wasn't anything that was particularly nice. So I hope you have more variety in the ultimate development, and just encourage you to do that. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you, William. Tammy.
Thank you. Again, kudos on your presentation. Particularly loved what I'm calling page 7, where you have your summary of key updates. That was incredibly useful. We so appreciate it when we have hundreds of pages of material to cover for a meeting. Some constructive criticism, please. I agree with Bill regarding the interim and the finished, but I don't think we who are alive now will have to worry about the finished central green. And that dives into a couple of my questions. First of all, in an observation, there's a huge, from the east to the west, a huge elevation dive on this, particularly within blocks 2, 4, and 6. They're very high on the east, and they dive down, to the road that goes through in the central green. Is that correct?
That is correct, Tammy. They're not only across, for example, block 4 from Fountain to Library is a significant grade change. There's a significant grade change from Fountain to Road C across the central green.
Can somebody on the map use a cursor so we can see, follow Dave's comments?
Yeah, so Fountain, that's Fountain.
Correct.
Library Street is there. There's a significant drop, but there's an overall drop from Town Center or from Fountain to Town Center Parkway, east-west of about 60 feet.
Right.
Okay. North-south, the site is relatively flat.
Okay.
So it's interesting that when we laid Library Street out, we tried to follow the contours to provide a dividing line so that Library Street actually is very flat and very pedestrian friendly north-south. The side roads are ADA compliant at 5%. The central green itself is ADA compliant with 5% cross slopes. So we have worked very hard to make sure that the green is accessible to all folks. And Stephanie and her team have done a wonderful job to try and put to craft that the central green around those contours so that there is an amphitheater effect on some of that lawn and flat areas where a stage can be and flat areas at the top that allow vistas and overviews over the park.
Super, thank you so much. Question, is Innova planning to sell the blocks to other developers or develop them themselves?
Well, if it's residential, they won't develop. But we have left 150,000 square feet total across all 3 blocks and have medical care as one of our uses. Innova doesn't know what it's going to do, but they have asked me to make sure that we got that 150,000 square feet in the tabulations to allow them to both expand and could be expanded in multiple blocks.
Okay. So 150,000 square feet of
non-residential.
Yeah.
And that would include our retail, that would include medical care, it could be some office. More than likely it's medical office and retail. And I don't know whether we'll get to 150, but we wanted to make sure that there was adequate square footage there for their needs.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to go back to the shared use pathways. Who's sharing them besides pedestrians?
Pedestrians and
bikers?
Bicycle. Yes, some
Are
bicycle.
there lanes that they have to stay in? Because I don't want to be walking along and have a bicycle zip up.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. The typical shared use paths that the county have been asphalt. For example, Barron Cameron's a 10-foot shared use path, which would connect. It's very much like the What's in Reston Association.
Okay, but are they striped, David?
No, well, I don't think we've gotten that far.
Okay.
At this point in time, they're 10-foot wide along the perimeters. And then the internal streets again are proposed with sharrows, so the bikes are in with traffic on the low volume streets.
Right, but we just heard that the county is trying to get bikes off streets. So
on major, and I should clarify that, on more major roads like Fountain and Town Center Parkway, most people are uncomfortable in a bike lane where people are going 35 and 40 miles an hour up the road. So what has end up happening is it's a little bit like what they did along, they call it a cycle track. Sometimes it's a combination of a shared use path and a sidewalk. What we have here is just the shared use path, but they're 10 feet wide. So they're very wide along the perimeter.
Okay. So will all of these streets in RTC North be required to have the Reston specific streetscape?
Stephanie, you want to take that?
I'd be happy to. Tammy, we're not showing every street having the Reston specific street, but we are committing to it on a majority. If you go back one slide, Tim, the one that's numbered. So number 7 shows specific streets where we are committing to the Reston specific streetscape, including along Fountain Drive and a number of the internal ones. And then I should note, like Barron Cameron Drive, and also, let me just flip back to my Town Center Parkway. Even though we may not be meeting the full 12 feet, there are other streets like that. Like if you look at Barron Cameron Drive, we're meeting the intent of the mix of uses and the mix of species and understory and canopy trees. So we've worked really closely to make sure we can get it on a key number of streets. And it also is hatched on the next sheet. Maybe it's a little harder to read, but on the far right column where it says streetscape, there's like a green hatch that says Reston.
Oh, great. Okay.
Specific
Perfect.
streetscape. So some places we meet the standard dimension, and other places we're meeting the intent of it, the mix of canopies. So it's kind of a blend throughout. And we're also thinking about the tree safe areas and how we can expand those and make it feel as part of the Reston specific streetscape too.
Super. Okay, and now I'm going to rail on your little chart that has the 1,172 new DUs. And what I didn't see on your massing plan, and the reason I asked about the severe, and you don't have to go to this chart because we know it, or I know it, it's 1,172 max. When you go to your massing plan, I didn't perceive that shows the huge 60-foot elevation change at all. It looks flat.
And now it's somewhat of an optical illusion. It's hard to render in 2 dimensions.
Okay.
I mean, you can see it. I mean, it's trying to. It is hard.
So the building.
Yeah, Barron Cameron looks like it humps in the middle by the school and then goes downhill.
Yeah.
So
the goal
again,
the goal was to set the buildings, for example, in block 4 and block 6 are ultimately going to have some structured parking that's built into the hill, because you can't take it all up with buildings. So
that was what I was wondering, because Matt made the very good observations about welcoming and a special feeling and way sharing and so on and so forth. And with that elevation, and it's not exactly a cliff going east, but it's pretty steep there. It is not pedestrian friendly. Trust me, I've walked up it, and I will only do that once.
I'll just note too, there's a full grading plan for all of the streetscapes and including the central green. And as Dave and Tim have already noted, I mean, the sidewalk, we're meeting 5%. So even though the whole site as a whole is steep across block by block, and the grading plan, I can just direct you to where that starts. It's on sheet 7 of 42, and it goes block by block and also has a grading plan for the central green.
Yeah. And Tammy, we have looked at, from a marketing standpoint, we see any retail is likely between Street A and Bowman Town. We don't see a lot of retail, and it's along Library Street, I should say, because that's where it's active. We're not going to be able to. The streets D and Cameron Glen Extended are more service streets, getting people into it and That's where we've committed, for example, not to have a garage entrance on block 4 opposite the central green. We're using those side streets as an effort to load the blocks.
Okay, let's, we're getting long here, so we need to, others have questions. I just want to comment on the school. I know we're not going into gross detail, but the school, an elementary school that's needed in Reston to have only one full-size playing field. No bueno. That is not good for an elementary school where kids need to be outside. Now, possibly they could walk over to the central green and frolic around, but you can't guarantee that. That's getting kids across traffic. So that's a concern. And certainly we won't go into those details. That the elementary school, if it's going to be there, needs to be fenced so that kids don't wander around, across the road and drown in that dang pond to the west. But all in all, thank you. I appreciate the detail and the care that you all have given, and it shows. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tammy. Lynn?
Yeah, thank you. I just had one follow-up question, or actually, I guess a comment to the parking, the on-street parking. We had a knockdown, drag-out fight with Boston Properties regarding paid parking at Reston Town Center. This should not be a paid parking environment. So I just want to make that comment early on. And thank you.
So on-street parking is not metered in Fairfax County. So, and then the county in block 4 are likely to provide additional spaces for some of the central green. We're hoping it'll be up to the developer, but we hear you. We've heard about it, about Reston Town Center North.
It's not good. It's not good. So thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Lynn. Michelle.
Hi, thank you. So I want to just go back to Bill's point. It really gives me a lot of concern with the proffers and whether or not it's actually going to be a ceiling and not the floor. So I'd like to request that you include language in these proffers that directly addresses that, so that we can ensure that everyone's on the same page, be it next year, 10 years from now, whenever they actually start moving forward. So I think we need clarifying language, not just a verbal commitment. Let's see, for the 150,000 square feet of non-residential, how does that, are you able to co-locate that with residential if it is that Inova stays and it's medical? Or how does that look, and how would that affect your table on residential units? You gave us two options, one with a large multifamily and one with single family. Is there an impact if there is substantial medical use in those blocks?
No, because the traffic study has taken into account that 150,000 square feet of non-residential. As to how it's configured on a block, that is yet to be determined. It could be part of a mixed use. It could be in the ground floor of retail, or as like retail. It could be its own building. Block 2 could end up being, something where Inova stays on the corner there at Fountain and Baron Cameron, and there are townhouses. There's any number of things at this point in time. That's for the later applications. We're trying to move this thing forward incrementally and try and get our streets and Central Green approved.
Okay. And can you remind me how many square feet is the current access ER?
I think it's 20,000 square feet, but I would have to go back and And of that, about half of that is not used right now. The emergency room is the only thing that's really in there. And I think that's 10,000 square feet.
Okay. And as you know, I'm also on the Health Systems Agency of Northern Virginia Board. And
Yes.
ANOVA has come rather recently to expand equipment in the building. So just want to ask again, is that good news for Reston that ANOVA wants to stay, or is there any interpretation that can be made there?
I don't think you can have any interpretation. The building's old, was built in 1976. Equipment lasts about 10 years. And every building that they are in, they are constantly upgrading due to new technology.
Okay. Okay, I have one question that is in the proffers. I noticed the use of the phrasing, the quote unquote so-called rest indeed. Are the applicants inferring that you don't believe that the deed applies or is accurate? Why is the use of so-called? Or is there, the way that it's phrased, it almost appears that you're not necessarily agreeing with what many, I believe, is the readout of the deed for this property.
Let's see. Well, I think you're reading too much into it. We can be as specific as you want. We're not trying to suggest anything. I think there is a deed that was originally recorded. The deed has been amended several times. I'm not trying to go through a litany of the history of the deed and its various amendments. It's also the case that these properties are not actually within the ambit of the original grant. They were included within the ambit of the deed by virtue of later deeds. And I don't think that, we need to belabor all that in the proffer. So I guess that's why I would call it so-called deed. I think that proffer is abundantly clear about the applicant's understanding that the property is subject to the deed and the applicant is committed to abiding the covenants of the deed that require us to go to the DRB, which of course we've done now many, many times.
And do you also believe that any residential units will be members of Reston Association?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes? Okay. Let's see. I also, I have a little bit of frustration that this is the last time we'll see the final iteration of the central green, because I don't think we really do have many details. It would be nice to see more on the playground. Again, it looks somewhat like the last one, very sparse. We don't have details on it. And it would be nice to see how the county and ANOVA are doing something unique and something to stand out. Because one frustration I've had and I've shared is that, you guys set the bar. And other developers are watching and knowing what they can and cannot get away with when you have ANOVA and the county as the applicants. So it is a tad bit frustrating here. But in tonight's vote, we would be approving the central green and we would not be seeing it again, correct?
If we have approval from the Board of Supervisors for the central green, we will be required to go through, we would be through our zoning process for it. We would go to final approvals with the county. We would go back to the DRB for their final approvals, which, as you know, requires a lot more detail on this as well. But we would not be, going back to the Planning Commission, so presumably not coming back through the P&Z on the central green.
Okay, and forgive me, but just what else would you say would fall under that category? So the central green's
This,
not coming back. What else is not coming back?
well, yeah, the same. So let's see, let's go to this slide. Block layout, uses, the maximum development program, the grid of streets, the central green concept, the framework for these various things. So the things that I think, and John helped kind of articulate them before, right? The location of the streets, the streetscape around them, the central green that they frame in both its interim and final condition, and the uses and development capacities, I'll say, for the various blocks.
Okay. Who's responsible for the maintenance of the central green and all of its iterations?
It will depend over time on how it's determined to be owned and managed. So initially, the expectation is that when we initially subdivide the properties between the county and Inova, that in order to keep a rough balance of the land that both sides are putting in and both sides would take out of the first subdivision, that would be in the Inova. It would continue to be owned by Inova. It's owned by Inova today for the most part. It's where the old nursing home was. It would then, before its opening as the interim green, it would be dedicated by Inova to the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. And at that point in time, in its interim condition, would be maintained by the project. And so that would be Inova and the county, or the successors to Inova and the county on the various blocks. And then as the final central green comes to fruition, some years down the road, there'll be conversations about, given the programmatic elements of the green, who is best to take on that role. It's possible that the Park Authority takes on the role, and it could be, maintenance by the Park Authority at that point in time. A lot will depend on what all of the elements going into the central green are at that point in time. There's, as you can tell, there's a lot going on. There'll be a stormwater vault underneath the central green. There'll be utilities running underneath the central green. So who wants to own all of that versus have easements in it and those sorts of things are, whole layers of this that will be determined, in the years to come.
Okay, has there been any discussion that it would be at any point the Special Tax District 5 in some way paying for this, or Reston Association?
So yeah, the expectation at the proffers reflect right now is that it will be owned either by the Board of Supervisors or Fairfax County Park Authority. There would, so if there were there's been discussion about would a ultimate maintainer of the facility would already be a potential party to contract with for the maintenance potentially, but they'd be paid obviously for their for the cost of that. It's not there is no scenario that we envision where members of RA, at least outside of this development, are, by virtue of being an RA member, paying to maintain the central green.
Okay, but we do also pay into that special tax district, which does cover a number of what we have in Reston and other places in Fairfax County do not have the same setup. So there's some sensitivity that with some new facilities, it will fall on the residents of Reston to cover the cost, whereas if it were in another part of the county, the whole county would cover the cost. So it would be nice to have some clarification there. And then
just to be clear,
yeah,
though, I can't
yeah.
provide that clarification
No,
right now,
yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, I just was wondering simply if the discussions have occurred, but it's something that could impact all of us. What is the funding status of the library and the Health and Human Services building and the school? Do we have bonding for? Is there a bond for all of those?
So we have. I'm sorry, was someone else speaking? Okay, so we have the CIP this year has the plan is that we will be utilizing EDA bonds for the shelter and the library, since the original shelter and library annual bonds, their time has lapsed. And so that money was utilized on other library and shelter projects with the idea and the full intention that what was approved before plus will be added as far as EDA bonds. So we have approval and funding plan for the library and shelter already, as well as the public infrastructure to put in the roads and the utilities and the central green. So that's where we are now. As far as the Health and Human Services building, it is on the future plan for bond funding, but due to the phasing and what needs to get built out before, that's being reserved and planned for future CIPs.
Okay, so forgive me. So I was under the impression the shelter was in the same building as the Health and Human Services. So you have funding for
No,
the shelter, but not the Health and Human Services. Is that correct?
there's going to be two buildings on Block 5. The shelter will go first. That's on the south side of Block 5. And then later we will have a Health and Human Services building and shared parking facility added. That will be the second phase of Block 5. So the original shelter, the shelter and all of its supportive facilities will be built independently of the Health and Human Services building.
Okay, but
You're talking,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to explain, like, we have 30,000 square feet for the shelter, and then 160,000 square feet for the Health and Human Services building, plus parking on top of that. So we wanted the shelter and library to get built first, as those are the most important priorities for the county, and due to the lifespan of their current buildings. So, those are put forward in a way that they can be implemented earlier than the Health and Human Services building, which is still in functioning, but not in such a dire need as the other two buildings.
Okay, and the funding for the library, I don't know the intricacies of the EDA bond. So that is secured.
Sure.
It could be done how quickly could it be?
When it's needed. It can be
When
done
it's
when it's
needed.
needed. Yeah. And so they won't, from what I understand, you won't get an EDA bond that is the full amount. You will get the amounts as you need them, but it's when you need them. So they sell them that way. We're not incurring as much debt service. So it's a more efficient way of doing it rather than than an annual bond. And there's less limitations on expiration of time to use the funds. But I'm not a bond expert. That's what I know as far as our use of bonds for the building design and construction division.
Okay, so so timeline though, the anticipation is that would they be built at the same time, library and shelter, or is there one coming before the other?
It comes down to how quickly we can get the blocks built out and the facilities built. We have some Block 5, I think, has more is more intricate in its stormwater and utility implementation. Block 3 is a little bit easier to build out and what's on it. So it's likely that the library will come slightly before the shelter, but they may end up around the same time.
Okay. I think that's it for my questions. I would say though, I really struggle on voting on this tonight without again clarifying language that the proffers are the floor and not a ceiling. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Those are great points. Any other comments from P&Z members? I don't see any hands up. Yes? Okay. Commissioner Carter, anything else you would like to add?
I hesitate to say this, but it's interesting, the review process we have here. everybody has veto power over everybody. VDOT has veto power over the Board of Supervisors. The DRB has veto power over the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors has veto power over everybody. This is a very complex project. And then there's going to be funding issues from probably various sources, including private and public sources. A very complex. And then where this has come from, it's come a long ways. If you remember the last scheme, I don't know whether P&Z reviewed that, but no connection to the town center. Getting that connection that this shows was quite an effort. There was sort of a skinny linear park that was not very useful, sort of in the middle of this. And then just the whole process of figuring out what goes on which blocks has been quite a process. So I'm smiling at this floor versus ceiling. It depends on who's establishing the floor, I guess. Is that the P&Z or is that the applicant? That it's going along with, I guess I wanted to say something nice about Tim and the applicant. I already said something about Stephanie and the staff that's been involved in this, and the planning commission that not the planning commission, the P&Z committee, and the way this has evolved. That this could be, I think, the recreation building. I believe it was just delayed a year or two from 2047 to 2049. Some of these projects might be a little bit off, but this notion of phasing, the notion of understanding where the total picture is and understanding what goes first, the library and the homeless shelter. Not to mention those streets. VDOT just hates trees. Other places in Reston, we can't get a tree to save our lives. This one has all those features. So somebody must be doing something right. And so I don't know, that's probably enough from me, but this has evolved, come a long way. It's very well presented and seems on the right track to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. I totally agree with you, by the way, but I also agree with Michelle. It does seem like the central green, we might want to sort of review that a little bit more, and more so than just tonight. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak or has questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any. Is there any other comments or emotion that someone would like to make? William Penniman.
Okay, yeah, based on the request that was made at the outset for what they're hoping to get out of the meeting, I'd like to make a motion that we approve and recommend to the Board of Supervisors the basic block layout as is reflected on the page titled 2023 Reston Mass. Is that the one? I think that's the one. But the block layouts that were provided to us on the 5th page of the sheet handout.
Was it 7?
It's 7. The development plan excerpt page. That's the one you were looking at, right? Yeah. That's the one you want. I would propose that the P&Z endorse that as a good proposal to proceed with.
William, do you have any comments on the either central green and or the proffers?
That we would reserve on the proffers until we've had more time to review them and we understand we have the right to raise issues on those down the road.
Okay. Tammy, I see your hands up.
You're on mute, Tammy.
Yes, I agree with Bill. Let's do a motion that approves the basic block layout and reserves opinion on the interim central green, no problem, but reserves approval of the final central green and the proffers. I think that's fair and gives Inova and the county have to have approval of the block layout to go ahead with the streets and to start their process. But they're going to be coming back to us. So I don't see why our motion tonight can't be to approve the basic block layout, the street and the proposed streetscapes, but we reserve our approval of the final central green and the proffers, being that we are concerned about the standards that will be given for things like green buildings. We want those to be Reston strong. Reston
Could you state that in a
proud.
motion?
Pardon me?
Could you state
Okay.
that in a motion?
Yes, I
Yeah.
hereby motion.
Well, I think, Bill, you have to accept her amendment if you want,
Could I?
or you don't
repeat
have to.
it?
It's up to you.
I mean, I think the gist of it, we're trying to say the same thing. Why don't we start
Yes.
fresh? I'll withdraw mine. Tammy, you withdraw yours.
I
John?
withdraw.
Okay, and I withdraw. So now I'll try again, trying to pick up what Tammy said, and that is that we recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the development, the layout of blocks and areas as set forth in the development plan excerpt. And also at least the interim central green. We reserve the right to comment later on the proffers and the perhaps the ultimate central green. Does that work for you,
I
Tammy?
second that.
Before you second it, I saw Michelle had her hand up a minute ago.
Oh, sorry.
Michelle.
Well, while I agree with the idea of this, I would maybe ask Tim and Eric with just how it actually plays out. So if tonight we only approve the blocks, you're still going to take the whole package to the Board of Supervisors, correct?
Yes.
So then if the Board of Supervisors approves the whole package, you're not coming back with the central green or
We-
with the proffers.
Well, no, that's not at all. Every block will come back with
Right.
the proffers that apply to it and to propose things. Now, it's an interesting discussion about these proffers, right? But if fundamentally, right, the proffers are an extension of the zoning ordinance, that by law, that's what they are. They're an extension of the zoning ordinance applicable to a particular property, right? They are minimum standards. That's what the zoning ordinance is. They are all well, I mean, obviously sometimes there's maximum standards too, but in a zoning ordinance, but they set the minimum requirement for what an applicant must do in order to, get the next level of approvals required to get a site plan and then get building permits. So the notion that you're articulating, I'm completely comfortable with on our side because that's what these are. I think that if what the group wants is to see the central green as it progresses in its final design, it would not be unusual to ask, I don't think, and I think we'd be very willing to come show the group the final landscape plan for the central green as it's developed. It will have to go through a final design process. It would not require going back through for further Board of Supervisors approval. It would require regulatory approval, coordination with the park authority and that sort of thing. And we could certainly, in the midst of that process, bring it back and show you all
And
the design progress.
we have to go to the DRB, so we could bring, as we go to the DRB, we can bring that back and show the P and Z where they end up. Ultimately, the DRB, as Commissioner Carter said, is going to have the final authority on the central green.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So to really answer your question, Michelle, the motion, I understand the concerns being articulated, and I think it works fine with our process because again, these are minimums, and we have a design process to follow that we'll be going through, as Dave says, with DRB and with the regulatory staff of the county. We're happy to come back and share that with you. So that's how I'd see it playing out.
Okay. I still just have I understand that they're minimums, but a minimum also could be, you could say, well, we've met the minimum. We appreciate your thoughts, but we're fine. You know?
But it's
So,
up to the board. It's up to the board
yeah.
to approve
Oh,
what
sure.
comes next. Yeah, not up to me. I think, but
Mhm.
Can we say this? And would you be comfortable with this? That we recommend approval of the block structure as laid out in the development plan with streets and blocks, and recognize that each project coming back in, we will have the opportunity to address the proffers that come with it.
absolutely. If you're asking me, Bill, if the only word I would ask that you might add to that is streetscape as well, because again, it was blocks, streets, and streetscape and interim green.
Yeah, I mean, I want this thing to move forward. Don't misunderstand.
No, I appreciate that.
I just know that the county staff has asked for better proffers in some other cases, and where we can, I'd like them. And 5 years from now, it may be a higher set of standards that the county staff is asking for and that we would be asking for. So that's why I want to keep that door open as this develops.
That makes sense. And Commissioner Carter's here too. He's hearing what we're saying and he can make recommendations as well as we go forward.
Okay, so, all right, let me try one more time to make a motion. And that is that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they approve the blocks, streets, streetscapes, and central green concept set forth in the development plan excerpt. Subject to the understanding, we will have an opportunity to comment more specifically on proffers and the final layout for the central green when those projects develop and come forward to us.
May I make a friendly amendment?
You require me to remember what I just said. Sure.
Well, it's recorded on the video, so we'll capture it. But you said recommend to the Board of Supervisors, and I believe this is going to Planning Commission in July. So I think it would be recommending to Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors.
That's fine. I accept that amendment.
Thank you. I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and motion and a second. Any further comments, questions?
I have one little thing, and this is more for internal consideration, but this proffer document is substantial. And I know we'll get individual proffers with each building, but I do think just going forward too, when we have something this substantial, it will warrant a much longer discussion about the specifics. And that's why I still have some hesitancy with this. But I'm, thankful, Bill, for your work on this. But it is there's quite a few proffers in there. Thank you.
Yeah, and to Michelle's point, Tim,
I totally accept your concern, Michelle, but this project has been hanging and delayed for so long. I don't want to slow it up more. And that's why I tried to make the motion in the form I did, keep it moving, but still reserve the right, and I have the opportunity to comment on the more detailed proffers than we've had so far.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all agree to that. Tim, I just want to make a comment that since it's such a complex project, as Commissioner Carter pointed out, I think it's important that as you go forward, you engage regularly with the P&Z. I think the more, again, back to his comments early, the more we can comment earlier on open space and things like that, and green roofs, like the more we can interact with you sooner on any of these individual parcels, the better. And more regularly. So, someone had their hand up. Was that you, Tammy?
I did, and I removed it because you've covered exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, okay, great. Great minds think alike. All right, we have a motion and we have a second. I think we had some dialogue, but I think we're good. For a vote, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
We have 10 in favor.
10 in favor. Okay, we'll go ahead and lower your hands. And David and Sue are off, I believe, so we don't have any double counts. All opposed. Any abstentions? All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time, and we look forward to seeing you.
Thank you for
Plenty
your
more
excellent
times
work
along the
here.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. It
Thank
looks
you
great.
for the time. Absolutely.
Good job.
Thank you.
That was a lot.
So
That's a lot.
yeah, exactly. Tammy, I have a special request for you. For the next application, I have a business reason to recuse myself. However, I have a personal reason that I need to depart from this meeting. Could you take over for me as chair for the remainder of the meeting?
Sure.
Would that be okay? Okay. I'm sorry
Yeah,
about
that's
that. I
fine.
don't like to do that, but I
Yeah.
really can't avoid it. So
All
just
right.
to reiterate, I need to recuse myself from the next case, which is Commerce Metro Center, applicant Comstock, and the applicant's representative is Kelly Pusney from DLA Piper.
Okay.
All
Here
right,
we
thank you.
go.
Thanks, John. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, John. Third and last
Thank you.
application. Commerce Metro Center. Who's presenting, please?
I'll start and then I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Pankowitz for some of the slides, but we promise
Okay.
to move swiftly given that. So, Jason, could you put the presentation up, please?
Could I ask a question before you get going? And that is, are you looking for a vote tonight, or are you continuing to educate us before we have to vote?
This was our final submission, but given that you had comments the last time, we weren't sure if you would be ready to vote. So, but we did submit our final submission. So if you feel like you want to give a vote, I mean, this is the final submission that we gave to the county in May. So.
Do we know if you all, I'm sorry, Kelly, but do we know if the concerns that we raised at the last presentation have been addressed?
I hope so. We spent a long time to really try to drill down on your guys' concerns, staff, as well as Commissioner Carter. So we met with you guys in November of 2025, and we had just submitted to staff, and we got comments back in January from them, which reiterated some of the concerns that you all had as well. So we spent February through May really drilling down and working on things like Street A, the streetscapes and stuff like that. So we do have slides tonight to show you how we've addressed comments that came up in November. And we did submit our final resubmission in May. So we have given good effort to address those things.
Ellie, before you go further, this is Tammy. Are you scheduled before the PC?
No, not yet. I'm working with Katie to get a date on that. So she's looking into dates.
We are not hysterically needing to have a vote tonight if you're not yet scheduled before the planning commission. What we don't want to have happen is you appear before the planning commission before we vote.
No,
So
understood. I'll
we're
have
gonna
to
go
work. I know
forward and
sometimes.
we're gonna list this as information only.
Okay, I'll work with John for September because I know your meeting's really
Right.
full. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the planning commission is not meeting before P and Z. If I have anything to say about it.
Thank you. Okay, where this is information only, Kelly, it's your floor.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, Jason, please. I think most of you, this is more of a location site. I think everyone pretty much knows the site that we're talking about. It's the Commerce Metro Center on the south side of the toll road, right at the Wheelie Metro Station. So it has frontage on both Wheelie as well as Sunrise Valley Drive. There's existing development there today. We are planning to demolish CMC 3 to make way for a grid street, but we will maintain the CMCs 4, 5, and 6, as well as add a multifamily building, which is on the corner of Wheelie and Sunrise Valley Drive, a trophy office building, which was the Yon building, we call it, which is on closer to the toll road and Wheelie. And then there's a hotel that's also right there at the Metro, where you come into a beautiful Metro Plaza that Stephanie will get into more. And we also have 2 other buildings, we call them CMC 7 and CMC 8, that are on the western side of the Metro Plaza. And that also leads over to where like the Association Drive and headed towards the Soapstone Connector. Next slide, please, Jason. This is the approval that currently is on the property. It was the Romanado plan that came through and was approved in December of 2016. They did not propose to remove CMC 3, so therefore the grid street that's shown in the comp plan could not be realized. They were also not removing the parking garage in the back where we have CMC 7 and 8. So there also couldn't be that north-south connector street, as well as there wasn't a really good park space in front of the Metro. So in this approval, there isn't really an at-grade connection to the Metro. So this is what could be built today, but we are proposing what we think is an upgrade to what this approval was. Next slide, please. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie at this point.
Yes, good evening again, and thank you all for the dedication of time and attention this evening. What I just want to touch on briefly is there's a lot of topography on the site. The existing grades basically create kind of a bowl where Commerce 3 and 4 that you see labeled are down very low, and the proposed plan, which I again will show in more detail, brings everything up to one at-grade connection. So when you come out of the Metro Pavilion, you can walk at one level all the way to the corner of Wheelie and Sunrise Valley Drive in the ultimate. And so this is about making a pedestrian experience in public spaces that are very intentional and have clear access through programming and destinations. So back to the next slide, Jason. So there was a question about what has changed. We've tried to list out again through all the different conversations with you all, county staff, Supervisor, Commissioner John Carter, the changes that have occurred, and we obviously provide the PDF of this presentation following too. And I will note there are page numbers, so it will be easy for you to refer to this one, and we'll make sure all future ones have page numbers too. But the mix of uses clearly identified the future street grid related to the comprehensive plan and how that could be realized. We also have done a great deal of additional improvements and design detail that we're providing on Street A. We studied even more fully the Metro Plaza and the grade conditions. And we have done a very deep dive into the park programming of all of the spaces. and continue to look at streetscapes such as Centennial Park Drive alignment, and then pedestrian safety measures such as crosswalks and others that we'll highlight upcoming. Next slide. So the master plan, the main building layouts of Commerce 10, the residential, which is the trophy office building, Commerce 11 being the residential buildings, the existing Commerce 4 to remain but being incorporated, the hotel building 9, and then additionally we're keeping Commerce 6 and 7 with 2 new office buildings. I'm sorry, 5 and 6 and 2 new office buildings, 7 and 8. And then we'll dive into detail. So the pedestrian circulation is key, and how the hierarchy works, with the darkest red line being the direct access to Metro. So we're very focused on both the Plaza, Street A, Sunrise Valley, and the internal east-west connections. So I just want to make the point that this overall plan doesn't rely on just one route to Metro or to other key destinations. There's a hierarchy of primary and supporting connections. And additionally, we have continued to think about the connections west toward Association Drive. Now, before we dive into some of the detail, I'm going to hand it back to Kelly, who's going to talk more specifically about the mix of uses and the street grid.
You go to the next slide, Jason. As part of the review of the comprehensive plan review for the west of Wheelie area study, staff actually did a comprehensive analysis of the mix of uses, and it included what is proposed for CMC as well as what is proposed for the Association Drive properties. And the results show that when you look at what's proposed with more office situated at the metro area with CMC and more residential as you go further west on the Association Drive property, that the mix of uses are comparable to what is recommended in the plan. So you would see in the residential mixed use area, you're about 70% residential and about 30% non-residential. And when you get to the transit station mixed use area at CMC, you're about 48% to 52%, with 48% as residential and 52% as non-residential. So a very good mix of uses that's consistent with what the comprehensive plan envisions for these two planned areas. And can you go to the next slide, please, Jason? We also were asked by staff to look at the grid of streets to make sure that with the soapstone, the future soapstone connector, how could this area be connected? So you see in the pink are our proposed connectivity roads. So coming off of Wheelie, we have our Street A, and then it goes into the green, which are the existing streets. We also showed in our yellow maybe future connections of how, if say other buildings in the future were to redevelop, how you would connect into the grid of streets that is going to be created with the Association Drive properties and then ultimately get to Soapstone. So you would have that connection through the corridor. So that's what this exhibit shows. So I'm going to turn it back to Stephanie now to continue.
And we're going to dive in, if we go to the next slide, to Street A specifically. So this is the main east-west street from Wheelie to Centennial Park Drive. And what we've highlighted here is a number of key changes we've made, such as adding a new tabletop condition in the center, highlighting the distinct crosswalks throughout. We've added curb bump outs. We've added additional on-street parking. We've committed to add an ADA parking space, as well as worked very hard to achieve stormwater management goals and not have buyer retention next to on-street parking. So this has been down granular in the inches level to look at the design details here to make sure that this is a pedestrian friendly street and that the two sides of the street speak to each other very clearly from the storefronts and activation. So we're going to flip now through a few pedestrian level views just so you get more of the flavor. And you can see in each corner of the view, there's a key map of kind of the vantage point. So this is as though you've walked from Wheelie to the sidewalk, and you can see the activated storefronts along the pedestrian base of the building on the left, and then across more retail, park space, and destinations. The next slide, you've basically turned your view around to look back east toward Wheelie. You see again activated storefronts, retail, restaurants on both sides of the street, and the pedestrian crosswalk and tabletop in the middle. And so our team actually took a look, and this is a photo from one of our team members in winter when we were doing this at the request of Commissioner Carter. So forgive the winter view and the summer view in the rendering, but we were looking really closely at the curb to building layout, the activation of outdoor furniture, the streetscape and signage, and the pedestrian realm of Market Street and how Street A could compare to that. So it's really just about a comfort level with the public realm experience to make sure we were meeting the high bar that Market Street sets. Next, we'll go on to Metro Plaza and go to the next slide, Jason. What we want to convey with the pink lines and the labels is, again, the care and attention to detail to points of access, view sheds, how things work like Uber drop-offs, where the elevator and other ADA access is. And right in the middle of the screen, you can see the label that says entrance to Metro. You are at grade at one pedestrian experience, very seamless to step into the Metro Pavilion, where there actually is a breakout panel that was planned for this with all the foresight of the Metro planning, so that when you step across that plaza, you're at the same level of the Metro bridge. So we have escalators, stairs, ramps, elevators that all, along with wayfinding, signage, and the park experience. If you go to the next slide, this just takes you up into the air, just turning around the view from Metro Plaza. And you can also see that along the toll road, there's a multi-use trail that would be for bikes to access the pavilion. And again, it's just giving you that sense of the different access and view sheds where you can see the pavilion from drop-off areas, from office entrances, both existing and newly planned. Now, this is a cross section through it because a key part of making the entire plaza experience level from Metro Pavilion all the way to Street A and to the corner of Wheelie and Sunrise Valley Drive is that it's all on one parking podium with the garage below. And we basically have sliced through the section through the plaza, so you can see that the grading on top is flat, how the elevators, stairs, and other access points, and then the garage and loading and all the vehicular access is below, and that really is for the entire phase one of the project. Next slide. Now I'm going to take you up to more of the pedestrian eye level, as though you've walked through the plaza and are about to turn the corner to the Metro Pavilion. And this is something, again, we studied very carefully to make sure that views and wayfinding and the access to Metro is very clear, but on a very activated standpoint with the restaurant and retail beyond. And then the next slide just gives you a flavor without any labels of the entire Metro Plaza, the scale, the activation, and how we work to incorporate the existing buildings and new and proposed buildings. And this space has been planned to accommodate special events, concerts, outdoor movie nights, exercise classes, picnics, holiday events, seasonal placemaking, along with very clear wayfinding and signage for all the visitors. And we've had the benefit through programming that's been planned at Reston Station that looking at the scale of crowds, the thousands of people, the programming, the infrastructure needed for stages, electrical outlets, lighting, just so many lessons that we've been able to learn through both Metro Plaza and where the JW Marriott Hotel has already had a number of key events that we've been able to bring to the thinking about how this Metro Plaza will work. And the schedule on the right is the actual schedule. So if you want to go see Bruce Springsteen or Taylor Swift tribute concert, I've been to many of these, and it's very fun to see the families coming off Metro with all the little girls in Taylor Swift concert outfits. So I'll just keep going as we kind of walk around the block. The next space that is a key linear park is along Sunrise Valley Drive. And we have looked carefully at not just this block, but the proposed rezonings to the east and built environments that are already existing to the west to make sure that this Sunrise Valley Park is continuous and provides the cycle track that's planned for this street, as well as a activated public realm for these residential buildings and the visitors who will go up and down it. So the next couple of images just show the character and quality, including the planting plan. This is something we have specifically committed to at the rezoning level to the Reston streetscape environment of a tree canopy of understory and a mix of species and native plants. And in the rezoning have actually done the planting plan, because this has been really key because there are existing utilities along this section. And we wanted to make sure that we could actually commit to the planting plan that's in the rezoning. And so there's been a bunch of work to investigate where these utilities are, and they're basically in the 5 feet landscape amenity panel back of curb, and you kind of see the bundles on the left. I'm sorry, I misspoke. They're actually under the cycle track in the 10-foot area. So we are able to get lower shrubs and perennial grasses in the 5 feet landscape amenity panel back at curb, and then the cycle track is on top of the utility bundle. And then I think we just have a few more slides that I wanted to show you just about the entire full master plan and how, if you'll go to the next one, Jason, in regards to the environmental improvements. We have a full program of green roof, both intensive and extensive, bioretention, stormwater vaults, as well as meeting all the canopy requirements, meeting and exceeding for the planted trees. So this is intended to be a very lush, green, mixed use urban environment. You know, and you can see the different components called out, but one thing we have been very careful to do is to not put bioretention next to on-street parking, because we want to make sure that we can achieve all of this and have a very safe environment. So there's 2 slides that Grove Slade is going to speak to that are specific to the safety improvements plan. So I'm going to hand the next 2 slides to Lauren. I think you're on.
Hey, Stephanie,
if you want to go,
it's Maria.
or Maria.
I'll take these
Okay,
ones.
Maria.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, good evening. Maria Lashinger with Grove Slade. We're the transportation consultants. So on the next slide, actually, we can talk about some of the upgrades. We were able to spend some time refining the design here for Centennial Park Drive. You can see kind of some call outs here. We were able to align the center line for this roadway with the south side with Great Meadows on the south side, so that if you're a vehicle traveling north or south, you can just drive straight through, so that it aligns better than maybe what might be experienced today, or what you might have seen in previous plans. There's a median on the north side there as well, so it's a more traditional, if you will, experience. In putting the new traffic signal in this location, we're able to provide a fourth crosswalk that doesn't exist today. There's 3 out there today, one of which is across Sunrise Valley Drive, uncontrolled, right? The vehicles don't have to stop. They're supposed to by law. We know what that looks like sometimes. So this traffic signal will help with enforcement and safer pedestrian accommodations for pedestrians getting across Sunrise Valley. On, call it the eastern leg of that intersection, you can see the dark green median there. We're also able to introduce a pedestrian refuge that will exist with that new crosswalk. So you'll have pedestrian refuges on Sunrise Valley on both sides of the intersection there. And with these upgrades, we're looking at the existing curb ramps on all 4 quadrants and bringing those up to VDOT standards to, again, make it a safer environment for the pedestrians in that location. With that, we can go on to the next slide. I think this one's back to you, Stephanie.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're really glad about the pedestrian, and again, it's the crosswalks and others that will contribute to this safe environment. So now I want to go on to the Wheelie Corner Park. This is actually this is one area where it's very similar to what you all saw last time that we were presenting in front of you. The other previous slides go through a fine grain of detail that we've been studying, but this is a really incredible linear park that takes advantage of the space between the curb and the building, as well as you can see from the perspective here, the ground floor restaurant and connection between Sunrise Valley Drive and the toll road. And this will just continue, Jason, walking around the park. These last ones are similar to what you saw last time, so we'll just touch on them, but there is a central green plaza. There basically a little retail bump out that's added onto the existing building that's shown in the rezoning. And it's reworking the existing asset, but making it connected as part of the overall park environment. And then the residential streetscape, again, this building and block, and you can see up in the corner where the key map is, now you're looking back up toward the toll road. This corner is intended to have more ground floor retail and activation along it. The last few slides, I think I just have one more that is the bridge park that basically connects the ultimate future phases for the new office 7 and 8. We're able to take advantage of the elevated grade as it comes from the west to the east and create a linear park that would moment there. It's about 40 feet between the existing building and the new office building, so we can have landscape beds. I don't want to say it's our High Line, but we definitely were inspired by the elevated nature of the High Line. And then the very last slide, we'll just come back to the master plan. We really have thought very carefully in 3D about how each block is really activated on each side of the building, how we've layered in the park spaces of all different kinds of scales, including linear park spaces, Central Green, the Metro Plaza, the elevated bridge park, how ADA access occurs throughout, what the ground floor retail experience is, and obviously with the way we're landscaping heavily along Wheelie and Sunrise Valley Drive, where we can relate better to the surrounding Reston context in the residential neighborhoods, across Sunrise Valley Drive, and how people on all sides of the project can safely walk to Metro. So this ends the formal presentation, and I'll turn it back to Tammy for you as chair, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Stephanie and Kelly. I'm going to change this up a little bit since we're running. It's almost 10 o'clock. And ask Commissioner Carter, if you would mind, if you're prepared, could you go first in comments about this? And then we'll take questions from the committee.
I can. I'm going to be fairly brief and just sort of go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So number one, starting with the numbers. So at some point we need to go over the numbers. I would never know where we're ending up. Are we asking for more density than the existing comp plan allows, or are we at the same? If we're asking for more, we need to justify that. Number two, I would like a three-dimensional drawing of the transit station that would have the plaza level, a pickup and drop-off area, a short-term parking area, access to the tunnel that goes across Wheelie, and then how you get the pedestrians and bikes to that. So I think you're there, you just haven't shown it yet. I think that could be a wonderful addition to this. Let's see. I'm concerned, this is a detail, it's the transition between the street where you're dropping off and the plaza. There's like a 7 to 10 foot grade there. And I wonder if we could work on that a little bit from a design perspective to soften that so that we don't end up with a wall. Right now, I think there's 2 stairways that go up. So maybe a way to soften that. I was going to ask you for this drawing of the setbacks between the old and the new office building, but it looks like you have that in that last slide. I'd like to see a section of how that works. And go along with that is the front door and the loading area that goes along with that. There's 4 sets of buildings there. Then the street design. I go back and forth on this. I think Wheeling is looking good. I'm looking for an extension of Street A. What happens when it goes off-site? Are you doing anything off-site? And is maybe just as important as designing it is it the right dimension for it to work? I have a list of crosswalks across Wheelie. You didn't show that. That design for the east-west connection, those yellow streets on there, you show that, but that's probably never going to happen unless you're proposing to eliminate 2 office buildings. So maybe there's another way to accomplish that connection between the Association Drive area and the metro station, so the transit vehicles and cars and pedestrians can get over to the metro station and of course back. I would have liked a little more parking along Street A. Whether you can do that, I don't know. That would make it a little bit more like Market Street. And then my last one is Sunrise Valley Drive. I've been back and forth on this. I was looking at the design guidelines. They call for 8 to 12 foot for the landscape panel. And I think you should do that. That was part of all these recent projects. For those that remember Lofts 2, that was part of Lofts 2. For those that remember Old Reston Avenue, we went back and forth on that. I would look at that. I'd be looking for lobby access to Sunrise Drive from this residential, and maybe some access from the units to Sunrise Valley Drive with perhaps a little courtyard. The best area for that is, let's see, Monument Avenue, where that horse is. That has quite a photogenic version of that. Signature in Reston has that. What we don't want is what Brookville and Wegmans did along Reston Parkway. That would be unfortunate. And then, of course, the open space. Then I wonder about paving. Do we really want an asphalt trail there? I don't feel that strongly about it, but it seems kind of odd in an urban setting to have asphalt trail, but maybe that's going too far. Well, those are my items. Sorry to go through them like that, but those are the things that I would work on.
Yikes! Well, that's the list.
I missed improving the alley, the view from the toll road. So looks like you have trees on one side. I don't know about the other side, whether you need to do that.
Okay.
Okay, that's my list.
Wow,
And
John.
What?
Who knew? Who knew? What a list. Okay, let's
I think the
go
main thing is
ahead.
those numbers. Those numbers. Take us through the numbers at some point. Maybe not tonight, but
Are you talking about the density?
yes, the density.
Yes, okay. Got
I
that.
would try not to use Association Drive to make up this 50-50 split. Maybe use the rest of this area, the what was it, Lincoln, or it's called something else now, and a couple office buildings. If you threw that into this, where would we be with the 50-50? We know that you're not going to get 50-50 precisely, but I think that would be a better start rather than going to Association Drive.
Okay. Amy. Amy Andrews,
I had mine up first.
I think Lynn's first.
Lynn, were you first? Sorry, I can't tell from my screen who's first. Lynn,
you asked me to go first, so I did.
No, I know you I planned on, but I hadn't noticed. Okay, Lynn.
I just have 3 comments. Again, a great presentation, but I think this is a lot in this small space. And I think that probably maps to John's comment about density. I'm really interested, Stephanie, in the green, that big green area that you had mentioned, and you had said something about having that as a park and maybe doing concerts similar to what they're doing on the north side of the toll road. And I think that it is so important that that remain green and not get paved over. And if concerts are a priority, then if it rains, it's going to be muddy and it's going to destroy the grass. So I would rethink the concerts. The green is so important. And then who maintains that open space? And then the last thing that I had was you may have gone through this, I missed it if you did, but at one of our last meetings, we had talked about the importance of the buildings that are facing Sunrise Valley Drive, how important it is for them to be tiered down, because on the other side of Sunrise Valley Drive is a stable neighborhood. It's established, lower buildings. So what is facing and what is right on Sunrise Valley has to be lower profile, and it can step up as it moves closer towards the north. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Okay, who's next? Was it Amy?
Yes, thank you very much.
You.
So just 2 things. There's a lot of focus when you look at this plan of how everything looks and the design of these buildings. But then we do have 3 existing office buildings that you're going to keep. And so sometimes when you're looking at the photographs, I'm just wondering what, if anything, could be done to the facade to maybe even alter those slightly to make them look a little more like everything else, because they already look like old buildings in a brand new development. And over time, I think the gap is going to be even older. I don't know how to do that in the most cost-effective way, even if it was just a changing to the color. I mean, you have the windows and that's one thing, but I feel like those buildings look a little out of place, like things were built around them. And so if we're going to keep them, I think there should be a little more effort to make them look like it was a design plan together. And then just my other question, in terms of the parking for this, is there going to be then like Metro official parking underground related to this? Or is the underground parking just going to be hourly parking based on the businesses? I was just kind of wondering how that was going to work on this side of the Metro.
Yeah, you want me to take that? So
Yes,
the right now, the Metro parking that's over on the north side of the road of 267 is, I think, has about 500 cars in the 2,700 spaces. And the county is struggling to maintain that property. The plan that we have does not include additional Metro parking. It'll be open to the public parking and parking for the project overall, but there's not a kind of public Metro facility intended to be constructed here.
And then just to clarify, when you say they're having trouble maintaining that facility, there's not enough people utilizing it?
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
It
So
operates at
the
a
intention,
significant deficit.
okay. All right. So the intention is this underground parking would not be paid parking,
No, it's paid
or
parking.
it would? It is paid parking. Okay.
Yes.
But it's just not designated as affiliated with the Metro
Correct.
in the way that the other official Metro parking is. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, who's next?
I think it's me, Tammy.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just verify. Up until recently, I was working in DC and parking in that Metro garage every day, and it is not filled at all anymore. It used to be when that was the last stop, but it is not anymore. Getting into this application, I appreciated the previous comment about stepping the buildings down, as they transition to the more established lower density neighborhoods. One of the things I've looked at recently on some projects is even in a multifamily building, doing like townhouse style units along the street that kind of have front porches and direct access that can then maybe step back as you get above the third floor or so and kind of transition into more of a multifamily volume behind there. I think that's kind of a nice way to make that transition and activate the streetscape. So that might be something to look at. I think the biggest concern that I have, and I've mentioned it regarding this site and adjacent sites multiple times, it's come up on a lot of our previous meetings, is this site really is the front door for the south side of Reston, to get to the Wheelie Metro stop. So how this project allows people from the surrounding area to come through it and get to Metro is really, really important. And I think there's a lot of good things going on internally, but I'm still a bit concerned about the pedestrian and bike traffic, crossing two major streets to get into the site, with especially, concern about wheelies. So I know we had talked at one point in time about a tunnel at that location, because we do anticipate down the road there being a lot more development east of Wheelie, kind of going down that whole corridor on that side. We've looked at a lot of those sites. So maybe Maria could speak a little bit more about how the pedestrians are going to be able to safely cross Wheelie and get into this site and then get to the metro station, because that's a big concern of mine.
Matt, I appreciate that. I don't know if we have a graphic we want to put back up that shows that pedestrian pedestrian accommodations through the site. But to your point, Matt, the traffic signal at Wheelie and Sunrise Valley, right, is that is the signalized location where if you're coming from the east, that's the location that you'll cross. If you're coming from the south side, though, you can either cross at Wheelie, north-south, signalized in a safe manner. Yep, thank you. And then we're introducing 2 new signalized crossings over at Centennial Park Drive as well, both again with those pedestrian refuge. So if you're coming from the east, that's how you do it. Coming from the south, and then from the west, if you're on the north side, you will have crossings at multiple traffic signals along there. Same thing if you're coming along the south side from the west, any of those north-south new crosswalks will be
I
locations
think
where
that
you can
those are all
cross.
improvements. I'm really happy to see the areas of refuge and the medians. I think that's great. My concern is still, I mean, if you look at some of the previous developments we've looked at Campus Commons, um, there could be thousands of units of density in there, and I'm just having trouble picturing someone who lives in a building that's kind of up towards the toll road, walking all the way down, doing a U-turn and coming all the way back through this site. Like they're gonna try to cross at grade at Wheelie, and I'm just concerned about that. Like we've looked at possibly thousands of new units coming in, on that campus commons site and farther west of there, and how those people get funneled to the metro is important to me.
Maria, didn't you show one of the drawings had a tunnel on it? I don't know if it's in
Is
this
there a
set,
tunnel
but
there? I mean, I know we had talked about that years
it
and
was a
years ago.
future. It was a future tunnel. We weren't building it now, but accommodating that was, isn't that on the drawings?
There's not sorry, John, were you going to jump in?
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah, I
drawings,
mean-
yes, they identify that there is that future connection. There was an obligation
Yes.
by Campus Commons.
Yes.
And your site accommodates that with the grade, and there's an area where that could come out and be integrated into this new design.
Yeah, Matt, we've shown a few scenarios of how it could, we've identified a few scenarios of how it could happen. Ultimately, it is their obligation, but there are some things that can be done at that corner where obviously I think the most obvious would be that they could pop up in an elevator. It is low, so there's other ways that lanes could be removed. Obviously, there's going to be some lanes removed off that ramp that could then accommodate the grade for the tunnel to
And
come across.
I just want to make sure
Just
that
to interrupt,
we're
Jason,
thinking
if you
forward
can
ahead
go
of
to
that.
the appendix, just go to the appendix. What Commissioner Carter is referring to is the exhibit in the appendix
Yes.
I
that,
have it. Hold on. I'll share it. I have it.
yeah, but, and this is what we showed Supervisor and the Commissioner as a representative markup of what this team has studied. Obviously, this is not part of the rezoning because the commitment and the study was on Campus Commons side, but the team has looked at grading, looked at access, looked at scenarios of how this could work. So this is what you're referring to, Commissioner Carter, that we showed you in Supervisor.
This is helpful, but I guess when I heard that you were bringing the entire level of that plaza up to be basically flat with the exit of the metro, and I know there's a lot of slope down from Wheelie there right now. That's what started my line of questioning here is where does that tunnel end? How does it make that connection? So you've spoken to that a little bit, but I mean, I would like to see one day down the road some type of a safe pedestrian connection here because frankly, I think as Campus Commons gets developed, it's where people are going to want to cross.
That's part of that three-dimensional transit station item I was looking for earlier.
That's all I've got, but thank you for providing some clarity.
Super questions, Matt. And thank you for that.
Yeah, Jason, if you want to stop sharing or go back to the master plan.
Okay. Michelle, are you next?
It looks like it might be Bill.
Bill.
Okay, thank you. Overall, I think, your layout looks very attractive. It looks like you have thought through a lot of the issues and, it could be very attractive. So kudos for that. A few comments and thoughts. One is, and I've said this before, the two new buildings, Commerce 7 and 8, look like boxes. They're, cereal boxes. I hope you can come up with a more attractive design, curves or something that make it fit the goal of having, first-rate architecture. So I'll leave that there. The crosswalk, I'll focus on one. I mean, I'm glad you have a reservation of some way for a tunnel to be built through to your property, and you're reserving some space for that. That's good. I understand the other side has to pay for most of it or all of it. But down at Wheelie and Sunrise Valley, there are these two little places that you cross. You stand on that, but to get to those, to actually cross the street, you have to dodge the cars that are flying down Wheelie and speeding through to Sunrise Valley and never stopping. So if you could turn those into square corners that people don't have to worry about people dodging through, I don't know, something like that. That would be very helpful because I mean I do go up to the metro from where I live on the south side of Sunrise Valley, and it's very nice to walk up there, except for that where you're worried about a bus or a van or somebody hitting you going across. They're probably supposed to stop, but they don't. So if you made it square, I think you'd do as much as you can to solve it. The proffer you have for EV charging, I think that's a problem. It's not sufficient, and I think you need to break it into two groups. There would be the commercial, non-residential, where you can have lower numbers, but in the residential area, I think you need to up the level of EV ready, or some people would call it EV capable spots, which are basically a conduit with a drawstring that you can pull a wire through, panel space and the like, but you don't actually have to install anything beyond that. And that should be up to the number of apartment units, potentially, but certainly starting at higher than 2%. For the residential, more like 10%. Should be ready. I mean, no, ready. It should actually have chargers and then go up from there. If you look at the proffers by Pulte, that was just voted down for other reasons, they actually have quite a good proffer for appropriate levels of EV charging readiness. What's the total amount of parking and how does it compare to the county minimums and maximums? Previously, as I recall, you had an awful lot of parking way beyond the needs of the expected buildings. Is the parking better matched to the expected tenancy and workforce?
Yeah, the parking, we looked at the market rate quantities. We also looked at there's existing buildings with existing leases. So we have to park those. And then we've come up with a strategy that we've worked with staff so that as we go through build in the first phase and do a study to see how much was utilized and potentially look to make changes for the second phase. So we do have ratios and things like that we've looked at pretty thoroughly.
And they're not so big to anticipate a casino, for example.
No, they're not.
Okay.
Bite your tongue. Bill,
I just wanted to ask.
Go back to bed.
Okay, I think. Yeah, no, I think that's all I wanted to ask for now. I think it looks like a handsome project.
Thanks, Bill. Michelle.
Hi. Okay, I'll be as fast as possible, but I've got a few. Okay, so first starting with the wheelie crossing that Bill mentioned. While squaring it may help, I think the problem is that you have the automatic right. And that's the problem because when we're trying to get across, we're contending with these cars who think they can just go right and don't realize they have to stop. Is there some way we can change that so that there's not the automatic right and we can protect pedestrians and they can make it across safely? Especially given that we're going to be seeing a lot more traffic generated given the immense size of this new development. So I think it's tied directly to the density and traffic you'll be bringing. So that would be my first request. Secondly, on the internal crosswalks, I'm a little worried that they're not, they kind of blend in with the streetscape and you don't seem to have any stop signs, correct? It's just hope they stop for you, or are there stop signs? And I'm thinking mainly on Street A with the internal crosswalks in Street A closest to Wheelie.
You're talking about with the
Maria,
tabletop
Ryan.
condition?
Yeah, no,
Even
there can
prior
be
to
there can be
that.
stop signs in there. I mean, the really only intent is where the tabletop is, just to make sure that we're not backing traffic up in towards Wheelie. So the intent would be that that one would pass through, but there is the tabletop to slow people down. There would be the stop from the northern approach.
Yeah, it's
And
just you've got,
the other
you now
intersections would
have,
have. Sorry.
you still have that little lane with the automatic right again. So you're contending with two directions of traffic and then one has two lanes and you've got to cross as a pedestrian. So I would just say, you know, I think that I think you need to look into some four-way stop signs. Just again, given the amount of traffic that's going to be there and the amount of pedestrians that you're going to have coming in here, not just the existing neighborhoods, but everything that's going to be coming along the toll road and down. Based on the visuals, I would not feel comfortable. It's very much hidden behind trees, even coming out into the traffic to cross. Didn't look great to me from what I saw. So when you guys come back, if we could see something better that is, you know, at least gives the appearance of being safer, but certainly considers stop signs, that would be great. Let's see. One question I have, and this is partially tying in Commissioner Carter, you as well. We're not really looking at the entire property here. We still have those buildings that are not under your control, correct? On the west side of Centennial Park Drive?
Correct.
Yeah, so is that going to be a situation where it's like another last man standing? What would be imposed on this property as far as development and mix of use and everything else? I'm just wondering, are we going to be in a similar situation to the Pulte loft too? And what would they be able to come back with just as far as density goes if they wanted to redevelop that? Or do your plans essentially keep that where it is? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, we're not eating up their density, if that's your question.
Yeah, that is.
No, they could come in and develop. I believe though that and I'm not as familiar, but I think the density from the one building, or I think the parking lot or something, there was some sort of density transfer. I'm not sure. Brian, you're on, right? Do you know more about that?
Yes, it's Brian. I am here. I'm on vacation and bleary-eyed because I'm in a different time zone. So, but I'm happy to jump in if you'll humor me. Hi, Michelle. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Kelly, you're absolutely right. The density from the office condo building for that building and where the parking lots are that you see on the exhibit, that density got transferred to the Lincoln Russell residential building. So that's already happened and it doesn't have anything to do with this application.
Okay.
Also for what it's worth, Michelle, to your comment, and Bill, to yours as well, about the pork chops and the free flow right turn lanes, the changing all of that condition is part of the Campus Commons proffers. So that's already committed to when Campus Commons develops.
Yeah, but we're not sure when that's going to be unless you have an update for us, Brian.
I have an update that the Campus Commons ownership is likely to be coming back at some point in the future with revisions to their plan, and it will not be as high density as it was previously.
Okay. Is there a
I'll have
chance
more to say about that later, though. Too early for that right now, but it's in the works.
Okay. Let's see. So, last time you were here, I expressed some significant concern that Great Meadow becomes a cut through. And then in return, so does Upper Lake Drive. I don't know that that's been addressed here, and I really think that that is something that absolutely must be addressed. Because we have children who ride their bikes, we have adults who walk, and our streets are not meant to be sped through. So I think, and again, last time you were here rather, you said come to us with suggestions. But I want to say again, I think you guys need to come to us and tell us what can be done and what are you willing to do to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I didn't see that in the plans unless I overlooked it.
No, I'm still happy to chat with you about that, but we did not come up with any more specific plans on that to date.
Okay, because I think that's going to be a major issue for the community, the adjacent community. Speaking of which, have you had any further conversations with the immediate neighbors?
We have not, so we will be doing that outreach again as well.
Okay. And then what right now would phasing be? So how does the phasing work? Or what's the anticipated build out?
Sure. I mean, I can take that. John can speak to that as well, but essentially
And it is in the plan set that was printed to Michelle. If you go to the very last 5 sheets, the very, very end of the entire, it's a big packet, but it has the phasing. And I'm happy to, Brian, if you need that, I'm happy to show that up on screen.
I mean, it's honestly, it's pretty straightforward. If you're looking at the exhibit on the screen, the Commerce 9, 10, and 11 buildings that kind of form a sideways U, if you will, around Commerce 4. That's the extent of the large underground garage. So that all has to be built at one time. So the garage is going to be built first, and then the buildings on top will go vertical in some sequence to be determined. But basically the eastern half of the site is going to be the first phase, and that large connected garage has to be built once in one phase at the beginning of the project. And then after the 9, 10, 11 buildings are constructed, that'll sort of round out phase 1, if you will. And then 7 and 8 would be in a later phase.
Okay, thank you. Last time you were here, and it's also in the plans, you mentioned a potential grocery store. Do you have any updates? Is that still a real possibility?
Still definitely in the plans. John, if you want to speak to any, discussions with potential grocer tenants or anything like that, but it's definitely still in the plans.
I don't, were you muted? I
Which
don't know.
John are you
Yeah.
speaking
Are
to?
you on mute? We can't
Yeah.
hear you, John.
John Harrison, we couldn't hear you.
Let's see if this works. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Yes,
I hear you
thank
now.
you.
Michelle, hey, we've got a space on the plans. We know all the grocery stores. And unfortunately, given where we are in the process right now, nobody's going to really talk to us in any kind of substance until we're, kind of through planning commission and have an idea that we're going to get approved at the Board of Supervisors. Just because of the duration of time it will take to build this thing.
Okay. I have one question, Brian. If I'm not mistaken, you said or someone did, so forgive me if it was not you, but that when looking at the properties on Wheelie and Sunset Hills, those are currently not moving forward right now because you can't build multifamily in Fairfax County. How does that then apply to Commerce 11, to building number 11 and the multifamily here? Why would you be able to build it here, but you can't build it on the corner of Wheelie and Sunset Hills?
So a couple things that was me, and I didn't say it was impossible. I said it was challenging. But also I can defer to John in terms of the timing and the way that Comstock develops their projects doesn't rely on the same financing component in the same way as other development projects. So John, if you want to elaborate on that, but there is a different structure in place there.
Sure. I mean, I think those projects were essentially immediate in terms of where they were and our obligation or requirements to move those things forward. And unfortunately today, there is a pretty significant disconnect between the rents that are commanded in this market, even for, kind of the upscale product and the cost to build. And so the project frankly doesn't pencil out today. This project is a different animal because it's at best probably 4 to 5 years away from delivering. So that's why that's why we're pursuing it.
Mm-hmm. I guess, with the loss of that grocery store, I recognize someone still could build it, but there's now no deal or plan with the grocer for it to come in, correct? On Sunset Hills and Wheelie?
JBG has sort of resumed control of that property and they're the right person to talk to. That deal is still available for them to proceed with should they choose.
Okay. Without that, you're left with the CVS for groceries as one person on the comprehensive plan task force had suggested. I don't think that will suffice. And I think something has to happen for this to truly be a livable and walkable neighborhood. Um, it's got so much office. What happens? I mean, you really think all of this office space is going to pan out? What happens if it doesn't?
We actually think we do a pretty good job with office space. The 600,000 square feet that we've got across the street that just delivered is fully leased. That's part of the reason I'm here, is that we actually believe that our placemaking and our ground plane leasing and the things that we do to deliver for tenants resonates with the market. And we have a pretty good track record of pulling those things off.
Okay. All right, that's it for right now, but it would be really great to see some additional things when you guys come back, especially work with the neighborhood and addressing what I think is going to be a significant issue and concern for the safety of the families who will be your neighbors. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Bill Penniman, did you have more?
I just had one comment. The comment was made that the getting rid of the pork chops or whatever solution comes about is Campus Commons problem. But the one on your side at the west side of Wheelie at Sunrise Valley, that's one you could take care of. And you can work out something financially with Campus Commons, so you pick it up now and they reimburse you or something. But if you get going sooner than they do, that would be nice to resolve, because frankly, that's the most serious one, because people can walk up the south side of Sunrise Valley, cross there, and it would make it safer. Anyway, just something to think about.
Thanks, Bill. I have one comment, or I have a couple comments, but John Harrison, did you say that you plan that this construction might start in 3 to 5 years? Did I hear that correctly?
No, I think, Tammy, that given where we are right now, we're probably, we wouldn't be able to put a shovel in the ground until second quarter of 27 at the earliest. And then it's probably a 3.5 year construction to get to take all the buildings to the top.
Okay. So yeah, we're not expecting all the buildings, but I'm just saying when you start.
Yeah.
And that you have, as you said, you have to, or somebody said you have to start with the garage first. So that's a lot of prep. So you're thinking it's 26 now. You're thinking
Yeah.
of starting next year.
I'm just saying it's the earliest I could see it possible.
Yes, yes.
I'm
Okay.
not saying it's gonna happen next year or
No, I
we still got a
understand.
lot of process to get through, so I don't
Yeah,
wanna,
I understand, but I thought I heard somebody say 3 to 5 years. I just wanted to confirm that.
yeah, I think before you, like, if you walk into the Reston Station project right now, that's consistent with the timing of that project
Okay.
in terms of.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, question that I have before I knew I was going to chair this is, on one of the first slides you showed the Reston master plan existing density for this area. It's 2.5 was the max. There was a range, but 2.5 was the max. You're coming in here, is that 1.5 to 2.5 is in the blue box there. You're coming in here with a 3.1 FAR. Is that right?
That is correct, but also to clarify, the image on the left shows the map that's in the comp plan to highlight the area
Correct.
in that blue box that shows the totals on the right-hand side of the page. Those square footage totals and the percentages are based on our proposed development and the other approved developments in that area. So that's already taken into account in this chart.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that when those of us who worked on the master plan for 4 years or 3 years, we weren't thinking of a 3.1 here. So that's something that I'm going to be aware of. And we're talking about 1.2 million square foot of office, 540 DUs, possibly 240 hotel rooms. And don't we have a lot of hotels in Reston already? And 44,000 plus retail square footage. So there's so much about your plan I like. I love the underground garage. I know you can't run a public street over the top of an underground garage. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, that
It
is
has to be
correct.
private streets. So anyway, I just I just want to call that to your attention. I'm not going to belabor this because we are running super late. It's 10:40 already. Thank you all for coming and giving this presentation. Really appreciate you. Any final comments from you all before you check off?
Just thank you for your time. We look forward to working with you, and we think there's a path forward here to
Thanks.
do something great.
Thanks for getting up, Mr. Winterhalter, on your break. So
Thank you. I
thanks.
appreciate it. Wouldn't miss it
What
for
is
the
it,
world,
Brian?
guys.
4:30?
Yeah.
It's
2:42 in
4:42 here.
Italy.
Where are you,
All right,
Brian?
well, have a good night, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
He's in Italy then. He's
Italy.
in
Oh,
Florence,
nice.
I think, right now. Yeah.
I know you don't have to feel that sorry for me, by the way.
Okay, good.
Going to a
Well, we
wine
really
deserve
don't.
it.
We just want to pretend to be nice.
I know. Thank you, guys.
Alrighty. Committee, we have one thing I need to bring up.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Good to
Yeah,
see you,
good night,
Stephanie.
everybody.
Good
Not
night.
on the
Thanks for
committee.
the time. Bye.
Thank you. Okay. We have a few of us left.
Yep.
We need to select new members. We are down to 15. Amy and Reese are officially full-time members because we've had so many people, or we've had enough people. Our 3 alternates don't exist anymore. So our alternates have moved up into full-time members. We have 15
Congratulations,
existing
Amy and Reese.
Yeah.
Yay.
Anyway, we're thrilled to have you. And I have to say before we say one more,
Attrition. Yay.
yeah. Mark, thank you for your dedication to us and managing us, and we couldn't do it without you. So I have to say that before we go any further. We started to discuss having a committee to select new members. I'm the chair of it, and Jared's gone. Matt, is Matt gone? Matt, I don't see. Matt Stevison, are
He's
you
on.
here?
Matt's here.
Okay. Did you sign up to be on the does anybody here sign up to be on the committee?
I did.
Okay, Lynn.
And so did Bill, so did William Peggy's.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I think Matt's being shy, but I recall seeing his email asking to be included.
Okay. All right. I don't want to, conscript him if doesn't want to do it. But anyway, so I'm going to put Matt on and he can decline. That committee needs to get together. I think I'm going to wait till next week, but then we're going to do it so that we can advertise to get new members, to interview for new members. And so we need 3 new people. So if anybody knows anybody in the community that would be good, put the word out that we're going to be asking for that. And with that, that's all I have. Does anybody else have any new business?
Nope. I move we adjourn.
Any old business? We don't have Jared, our parliamentarian here, so, okay. We have
I'll
a
second
motion.
that, Len.
Thank you,
Okay.
Amy.
All right. All in favor?
That's a way to take charge. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Night.
Thank you all. And
Thank
Good night,
you.
Tammy.
all right.
Thanks for
Thank you
stepping
so
in.
much. Take care.
Night.
Good night.